Pakistan is at a crucial turning point. The macroeconomic challenges Pakistan faces, like circular debt, dependence on fossil fuel imports, and limited fiscal space, are deeply connected to climate and, of course, the impacts of climate change. As Pakistan navigates negotiations on policy-based loans, there is a real opportunity to align fiscal policies with the country's green transition and energy reform goals. German development cooperation, through its long-standing partnership with Pakistan, has been at the forefront of supporting this transformation. And the Pakistan-German Climate and Energy Partnership, the PGCEP, exemplifies our commitment to advancing sustainable development solutions that address both economic and environmental imperatives. Through our portfolio, we have supported Pakistan in three critical areas. Firstly, strengthening energy sector transformation. Our project, Decarbonization and Digitization of Power Distribution Networks, has been instrumental in improving distribution efficiencies as a key reform area identified by the policy-based loans. By developing long-term energy scenarios and providing technical assistance for grid modernization, we are helping Pakistan to reduce its circular debt burden while creating the infrastructure necessary for renewable energy integration. Second, in building climate resilience, our work on the National Adaptation Plan and climate risk assessments is helping Pakistan to plan better public investments that reduce disaster risk and support long-term resilience. And thirdly, and perhaps most relevant to today's dialogue, our long-term low-emission development strategy project, which is working to create integrated pathways for Pakistan's decarbonization. This work explicitly connects macroeconomic stability with climate action, demonstrating that fiscal sustainability and climate ambition are not competing objectives, but mutually reinforcing goals. Today's dialogue is about transforming the macro-fiscal system to support low-carbon growth. And I want to highlight three ways our partnership contributes. German assistance supports the development of innovative financing mechanisms that can mobilize private capital for clean energy investments by helping to design de-risking instruments and establish clear investment frameworks. We are addressing one of the key barriers to Pakistan's energy transition. Through capacity development initiatives, we have strengthened the institutional foundations necessary for implementing complex reforms. Our work with key ministries and regulatory bodies has enhanced their ability to design and implement policies that simultaneously address fiscal challenges and environmental objectives. And through knowledge exchange and innovation, we introduce international best practices in areas such as carbon pricing, green taxonomies, and climate responsive budgeting, all critical components of the macroeconomic reforms under discussions today. Looking ahead, the German Development Cooperation remains committed to supporting Pakistan's vision as articulated in the Iran-Pakistan and other national frameworks. We see tremendous potential in aligning the fiscal reform agenda with national development priorities, particularly in three areas. First, in the development of carbon pricing mechanisms that can strengthen price signals while generating resources for green investments. Second, in steering the financial sector towards sustainable investments. And third, in implementing the CTPCM to promote renewable energy and market transparency. In closing, Pakistan's economic and climate challenges require integrated solutions. Reforming the macroeconomic regime is key to building a strong, inclusive, and low-carbon future. German Development Cooperation through GIZ and KfW is proud to be your partner on this journey with technical expertise, global experience, and the shared commitment to your goals. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Hassi, for setting the scene. You are very right that we need integrated solutions for this Pakistan's multi-faceted crisis. I always say that this is an 3E crisis of Pakistan: economy, energy, and environment. Why I say this is a 3E crisis? Because there is a fiscal deficit, there is chronic current account deficit, and then we have deficiencies in our energy sector. Our energy sector is largely import dependent. Uh, what we need to come up with, we need to come up with an integrated solution, very rightly highlighted by Mr. Hassi, that uh, sustainable investments into the power sector, keeping it competitive, keeping it aligned and uh, integrated with other sectors, just like highlighted in Uran Pakistan, the National Economic Transformation Plan uh, by the government of Pakistan. It has 5 E's in it. That is uh, economic growth through exports, efficiency, e-commerce, energy, environment, and equity. So we need to come up with some sort of integrated approach. Uh, Mr. Hassi highlighted three very basic things that are required. That is energy sector transformation, plus with Pakistan's climatic goal, that is National Adaptation Plan, and long-term low emission growth modeling, so that we have this integrated planning. To delve it in detail, I would like to invite Ms. Sobia Becker. Ms. Sobia Becker is the advisor of Pak-German Climate and Energy Partnership for her presentation, so that we can learn more on the program. Over to you, Ms. Sobia.
Thank you very much. And I love how you say that, Khalid. And this is actually why we're here today, to balance the 3 E's with the 5 E's of Uran, Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum, and also a very good morning to all our distinguished guests. Dear Nadia, Mirza Saab, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And I'd also like to extend a very warm welcome to our online participants. I understand that we have quite a few people joining us online as well. So thank you very much for being here. The genesis of today's conversation lies in a conversation that Nadia and I had a couple of days ago, where we kind of recognized that there was a policy window that was open right now vis-a-vis the agenda setting, the budget setting process, and it was very important to get uh, more voices into informing this process. And then we agreed that we would have a series of high-level policy dialogues designed as input for the thinking that's already happening at every level of government. And so it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the first of these dialogues. A little bit about the Pakistan-German Climate and Energy Partnership. If we could have the slides up on screen, please. Thank you very much. Pakistan is the first ever country where the government of the Federal Republic of Germany established a bilateral climate and energy partnership. And this happened in 2021 at COP26. And the goal of these partnerships is to better support partner countries like Pakistan in implementing not only their climate goals, but the end goal is to have a tangible increase in climate resilience. So by combining not just the goals of the Paris Agreement, but also the social and economic development goals in line with Agenda 2030, we are here to support the government of Pakistan in reaching Paris goals as well as its SDG goals in a socially just, equitable manner. Next, please. In 2021, we had one partnership, and now I'm happy to inform you that 11 other countries have come on board. And as you can see, the climate and energy partnerships range from just energy transition partnerships to broader climate and energy partnerships like we have here. So as you can see, Pakistan is in good company, and we are supporting our partners in achieving their Paris and SDG goals. Next, please. How does a partnership work? There always has to be a method to the madness, and we have essentially three pillars that guide our work as well as our thinking. Very critical is pillar number one, dialogue, which is what we're doing today. Then engagement, not just with the traditional actors who are always involved in policy setting processes, but also with civil society organizations and non-traditional actors that typically are outside or have been outside of the policy making network. And we have a very, very strong partner orientation. And why is this important? Because climate change, to address climate change impacts, requires not just a whole of government approach, but it also necessitates a whole of society approach. Next, please. And next. How does Germany support Pakistan in reaching its Paris and SDG 2030 goals? As of now, the portfolio that we have in Pakistan, and this is our bilateral portfolio, is equivalent to 380 million euros. And I would like to stress again that this is just the bilateral portfolio that we have. This, obviously, we have much more funding that is available to Pakistan via, for example, the Global Shield, where Germany is the single largest donor, as well as the pots of money across different MDBs and other institutions that we have. It's also very important for the colleagues in the room to note that the bulk of this money is delivered in the form of grants. So this is finance for which Pakistan doesn't add to its debt burden. And then we also have concessional finance. And how is this delivered? This is delivered via the GIZ, German International Cooperation, and by the German Development Bank, the KfW, across 26 projects that are currently being implemented in different sectors related to climate and energy. Next, please. This slide gives you an overview of the different projects that we have at the moment in technical cooperation. Implemented by the GIZ, you see different projects that are focused on increasing climate resilience, on addressing climate change mitigation, on sustainable energy as well as energy efficiency, and very importantly, adaptive social protection. Because given Pakistan's very high level of climate vulnerability, it's very important to extend social safety nets to highly vulnerable populations, because in the Planning Commission, I think everyone is very well aware that every extreme weather event can wipe out decades of social and economic development gains. Next, please. In the area of financial cooperation, and these are really the big ticket items. So these are the investments in infrastructure and in the energy sector. We'd like to highlight some of the projects that are currently ongoing. In energy efficiency, there is support to the National Transmission and Distribution Company. There's a very strong emphasis on promoting renewables, given Pakistan's very high potential for solar and wind, as well as other traditional renewable energy forms. A very strong focus on promoting clean and sustainable energy and climate change resilience. I'd just like to point to my colleague Abrar, who is here from KfW. So if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach Abrar. So as you can see, technical cooperation, and this is where the GIZ is building the capacity of partner institutions. This is where we have different projects designed to address very directly the type of challenges that Pakistan faces. And then we have financial cooperation, which is looking at infrastructure development and the mega projects that are currently in the country. Next, please. Now we come to why we're here, the purpose of the conversation today. A Chinese proverb goes, may you live in interesting times. And I think that if anything, this is a very interesting time for Pakistan with its tremendous potential, but also the range of challenges that the country faces, not just in terms of climate, but also in energy. With the policy-based loans that are coming up, there are specific demands that are being made uh, on the, let's say, two or questions that are being posed to partners, national partners in Pakistan. And for example, just looking at the flurry of reforms in the energy sector, they go from accelerating cost reduction reforms, expanding RE adoption, privatizing inefficient power generation companies, implementing timely price and tariff adjustments, reducing circular debt. And this is how Germany responds with our bilateral offer of support. We are currently engaged in direct support for distribution efficiency. We are providing technical as well as financial assistance, not just for grid efficiency, but also for grid integration of renewables. We're looking at the long-term energy scenario and developing models that can support privatization strategies. There is intensive capacity development for market reforms as well as an examination of circular debt reform implementation. Next, please. In the climate sector, there is a need or a stated demand that public investment processes have to underscore or support disaster resilience projects. There is a need looking at Pakistan's dwindling water resources. Enhanced water resource management is important. There needs to be improved climate risk disclosure. We need to promote green mobility and implement efficient water pricing mechanisms. What is the German response? We are supporting the public investment, prioritizing climate resilient infrastructure. We are supporting our national partners with climate risk vulnerability assessments and disclosure mechanisms. Here, I'd also like to add that we have a new project that has come up, which will be looking specifically at disaster risk assessment, mitigation and management as well. Then developing sectoral decarbonization pathways. The pathway for the textile industry is readily available. We're developing institutional capacity for climate responsive development planning, and this is something that we're incredibly excited about to work with Nadia on this. And then establishing market-based mechanisms for emissions reduction, as well as supporting sustainability strategies. Next, please. And with that, I come to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Sofia, for highlighting what a wonderful work Park German Climate and Energy Partnership is doing, particularly in terms of providing non-debt creating facilities, financial facilities, instruments for Pakistan, and the work, particularly climate resilience, energy efficiency, infrastructure investments, and in adaptive social protection, which is, I think that is very phenomenal for creating these synergies between economy, energy, and environment. Uh, Talking about environment, Pakistan faces multiple crises. Environment and climate change is at the top of it. To delve into detail and what are different modalities that go around fiscal side of it, macro side of it, and the climatic side of it, I would now invite Ms. Nadia Rahman, the member of Planning Commission for Food Security and Climate Change, for the keynote address, please.
Thank you very much, Khalid. I welcome all of you to the Planning Commission and this dialogue on greening the macroeconomic and fiscal regime for low carbon development. This comes at a very important time. The government is going into a budget cycle. We have also started negotiating several policy-based loans with our development partners and with the International Monetary Fund. I am very grateful and I'm looking forward to the partnership with GIZ and SDPI, and in particular GIZ's Park-German Climate and Energy Partnership Initiative, to take the dialogue forward and to ramp up the advocacy that is required at all levels of the government, uh, across federal ministries, across the provinces, to integrate and harmonize our various policies that are coming forward and to mainstream green instruments across all policies. So this comes at a time when the government of Pakistan has launched the Uran Pakistan program. This Uran Pakistan provides the general guidance and priorities for development and identifies 5 pillars. The first one being exports, then environment, energy, equity, and e-Pakistan. All across all of these, the theme of climate change and low carbon development is cross-cutting. And for making it cross-cutting and mainstreaming it, it requires that we bring the policies together, as the government right now is preparing sectoral plans, and we are going into performance agreements with all federal ministries and provinces. So while this would require an overhaul of various policies, programs, and then bring the projects in line with what we envisage. And in this room, this is the Planning Commission, the policy loans are approved. The larger projects and programs of the government are approved. The country partnership programs that we do with our development partners, they are approved. And so this provides us basis and the right platform to do advocacy and mainstream our efforts. For us, very clearly, what is climate change or greening the macroeconomic regime for low carbon development? Why is it important? One, Pakistan has a balance of payments crisis. We are fiscally constrained. We do not have the foreign exchange to go into the kind of development, whether it's for investment or export growth or for public infrastructure. So we have to lower our cost of borrowing and cost of finance. So climate finance and climate-related concessional loans provide an opportunity for the government of Pakistan to reduce our overall cost of borrowing, whether it's for investment or for public infrastructure development in the country. So this is seen, climate change is a lever of economic transformation, and this is something that we need to ingrain across the board in our development portfolio and policy formation. Second, international value chains are shifting. There's an inflection point that we have reached internationally. Governments, corporations have gone into net zero agreements, and they have targets where they would have to bring in green innovation, green industrial processes in order to meet those targets. So the future is in green value chains, green skills, and green jobs. For Pakistan to retain its and expand its share in the international markets and to create green jobs and retain them, it is imperative that we look at our scope 1, scope 2, and 3 emissions, and we look at cleaning our power sector. We look at cleaning and greening our industrial processes so that we can be ready for international regimes as they are transforming for international trade. We've seen how carbon border adjustment mechanisms are coming into place in various markets. So for us to be ready and to integrate into green value chains and to create and to generate exports as the international markets are changing, this is imperative. economic policies so that we move towards sustainable industrialization and also agriculture. Finally, we talk about we talk about building climate resilience. We understand the floods and the recent disasters are a very clear indication of how economic security and climate security are interlinked. The flood of 2022 contracted our GDP by 4%. That's pretty much what Pakistan's export, the entire export amount is. It's 4% of the GDP. So with one disaster, the economy contracted by 4%. We had 30 billion in loss and damages to the country. So bringing in processes which are climate responsive to our policy so that we build climate resilience into our programs, policy loans, policies, and projects. This is essential. And the government is cognizant of it. We have, for the Planning Commission for all public sector processes, we've started reviewing public financial management. So for that, we have introduced climate screening of all public sector projects. So climate screening in terms of whatever that is approved at the Central Development Working Party or what is approved in the government as a project, it has to go through screening for climate resilience, and our risk appraisal processes have now are being updated for including climate risk appraisal. And then we are also working with the Ministry of Finance and the State Bank of Pakistan to bring in climate risk appraisal into financial processes for greening the banking sector, and also the way the firms work and oversight through the Securities Exchange Commission of Pakistan, so that the firms also start bringing in climate into their development plans and incorporate climate risk proposals. And we are also working on blended finance frameworks with the Economic Affairs Division and Ministry of Finance to bring in de-risking instruments into the public sector, not just the public, into the public sector, and also private capital mobilization. Now, this is something, the way traditionally the government works is that our projects are funded by the public exchequer, which is largely the taxpayer, or it is debt finance. Now we want to use these resources to blend and leverage private sector finance. So instead of having cookie cutter loans from the development partners, we are going to move towards using that debt finance to use to bring in first loss guarantees, to bring in additional instruments that will crowd in private investment. And this is going to be through agreements with Ministry of Finance and the Economic Affairs Division. This is going to be the modus operandi, that we are going to look at other sources, and in particular also public-private partnership. And I'm for all projects across the board, and in particular for the energy sector. And we are joined by CEO PPIB. He will be talking more about public-private partnerships and the role of private sector in meeting our goals. So I think to conclude my comments, this is a very important dialogue, and it's not a one-off dialogue. It requires advocacy, because we have to align many different policies to mainstream climate and the goals of climate, not only for adaptation and mitigation, but for debt resilience and green economic transformation for future economic security of the country. I'm very grateful to our partners, GIZ and SDPI, for organizing this workshop. This is going to be a series of workshops, and this will result into a working group which will work with several different ministries through the budget making process and beyond. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Nadia, for highlighting the importance of greening the planning, policy, and processes. We surely need to decrease the cost of borrowing. We need to explore alternative investment for crowding in of the private sector so that government can focus on efficiency and effectiveness of these processes. We need to make sure that international value chains because they are shifting, we need to align our policies with them as well, particularly from the viewpoint of carbon border adjustment mechanisms, climate resilience, and how to go about it. And lastly, the blended finance that Pakistan needs. Thank you so much for the keynote address. Uh, this is the start of session one, that is strengthening the fiscal reforms, fiscal framework for energy sector reforms in Pakistan. It is very much connected. In Pakistan, we all know that there are fiscal constraints, and those constraints reflect in energy sector, and energy sector reforms are curtailed due to these fiscal constraints. Secondly, there is consumer perspective. If consumers do not have the buying power, the energy sector uh, will face these difficulties because of the decreasing demand. So we need to come up with some sort of integrated framework where we sort of instill competitiveness, we instill green job creation, we instill lowering the tariff in a way that is not creating fiscal burden on the sector. So we need to look for competitive markets, energy sector reforms. This session one is all about it, and Ms. Sobia would be co-moderator of this session as well. Over to you, Ms. Sobia.
Mike.
Exactly, into the, I think there's economic. It's my pleasure to have
Sobia, you can come over here if mic is not working.
everyone. I think
Yeah. Okay.
thank you. It's okay now?
No.
Use the other one, please. क्योंकि फिर online participants को आवाज नहीं आ- I don't know why they're all blinking. You have to find. What's going on? This is like super chaotic.
Your mic.
नहीं हो रहा खराब हो
Hamza, if you could assist.
This is working. Good.
I'll try to speak louder.
Yeah. Are you audible? Ask the audio.
Maybe you can try this one.
They won't hear you.
This is not working actually.
उसको पीछे से plug out कर
Okay.
इसको बंद कर दो
Thank you. Yes, we are back, and it is my pleasure to have my friend and colleague Gul Hassan Bhutto with us this morning. We have been actually talking about a detailed presentation for a while, so I'm very happy that we're here today. In this session, we're going to focus on the key challenges as well as the opportunities for strengthening the fiscal framework that's much needed to have any sort of successful energy sector reform. How these reforms can help the energy sector enhance industrial competitiveness, facilitate green job creation. And by the way, tomorrow morning, we're having a very important discussion on Pakistan as a green skills champion. So I'd invite you to join that as well. And what this means for overall economic stability. Mr. Gul Hassan Bhutto is Director General and Advisor CTBCM at NEPRA. And we're going to have a presentation to set the scene for our discussions now. Mr. Bhutto, I invite you. वापस आके बैठना है, तुम्ही जगह पे वापस आके बैठना। आपने ऊंचा ऊंचा it seems like it's all right. नहीं, I think it's all right. Please ऊंचा बोलिए. It's all right.
Line से confirm कर लें. Are the online participant audible? They are audible to you?
ठीक है, आप शुरू करें. जी. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you very much, DPI and GIZ, all the participants, and then all the faculty here.
पीछे को निकाल.
What I understood from all this agenda, at least by this session, it should be clear that we are hearing about the markets and then monopolies together. Then how about where we stand now, and how many months, days, or years are we away? Yeah, everybody should have a choice कि वो कहीं से
Depending on the monopoly. How is open this year? I speak about the instrument, the powers of the
please. So my point is, on the you need the market. There is no doubt into that one. Coming from the private sector for the 17 years, and then been with the NEPRA for the 5 years. All 5 years, there was an initial voices that there would be a market, there would be no market. Being a focal at the NEPRA, at the central pivotal, and then working with the entities, and then at my left hand, who is actually a right hand person into the market, the Umar Bhai. Now we are listening, everybody, we need the market when you are opening. So no one in the public and private sector have any second thought that we don't need market. Because the roots has been deepened in a way, starting from the CCI policy, leading to the federal government plans, and 2018 NEPRA Act from the Parliament, and down the line, the primary legislation, the secondary legislation, a lot of the 19 regulations notified and 7 rules notified from the government, gives all the commitment from the government's policy side and regulatory side, the market to open. I would say, like Qaidism says, that there's no person to undo Pakistan. Now, at least after 32 years, I can say you there's no person to undo market. There's a little things to be done that are on the way. Even while coming to that one, we had short meeting that in the last milestone, Umar and me together were there, and we are starting it out. That is called the use of system charge. Okay, highway pay, when people are coming, do a bilateral trade, the use of system charge has to be there. Once it is there, then nothing, no any instrument has to be done over there. So this is something setting the stage. We enjoy the monopolies from the decades, but today the global 8 trillion population with about consuming 30,000 plus billion units of energy globally. I mean, I would say the electricity units, 53% of or 60% is liberalized. Like you get aloo, pyaz, tomato going everywhere into the market. Nobody says that in Islamabad sitting, oh, ISCO would be coming, and connection is something else. You get the connection from someone, but the electrons you can buy from everywhere. This is the trend, global trend. It's starting from Latin America, Peru in 80s, and then flood moving into the developing countries also. The fast track liberalizations, the 60% of energy. When I talk about the energy, I'm talking about the gas, power, but to be specific on the power side, 53% of the kilowatt hours are traded in the markets on short term, on 5 minutes, day ahead, month ahead, and then short term 1 to 2 years contracts in the bilateral regime, rather than where we are continuing for the 25 years of the contract with the price, volume, and contractual risk all to the consumers. When you open up the market, then the risk are coming back to the markets. Put into an example, I mean, let me talk from my heart rather than you follow my slides. Then we are in a power plants that just, which is end the story. Now we have terminated, let's say, thermal plants of 2002 policy. Of course, the efficiency contracted 20 years back. The capacity contracted 20 years back. All this risk was with the consumer. Now, had that been into a market, then if this generator had to do a bilateral contract, then I, as a buyer, if I want a choice, you are expensive and you have not retrofit your efficiency, then I would have gone to that one. So we cannot say monopolies were bad. Globally, they started with the monopolies. There was the benefits of economies of scale, the central planning, and then cost efficiencies. But the problem statement is that with the 100% recovery in Pakistan, and which is actually a 92%, we are losing about 300 plus billion in recovery with allowed loss of 11.5 and having 18.5. We are losing 274 billion into the loss, thereby adding a 600 billion in our circular debt every year. Road ahead is the recovery is deteriorating in CPPA pool from 92 ahead, and also in K Electric, which is 91.5, and similar, the path is losses are rising. That are reported into the state of industry of NEPRA and altogether. So what's the point? What gives us pleasure to keep all this in our pockets with government of Pakistan with its own budget and with all sovereign guarantees? This is not the trade. Why not to give 85% of this electricity cost is generation. 23, 24 revenue requirement to feed. I mean, all these 10 discos, all this K Electric, all this transmission and 150 IPPs, for their revenue requirement is for CPP pool 3,800 billion, 3.8 trillion. For K Electric 600. So thereby meaning on CPPA pool you consume 100 billion units. Thereby meaning to recover this 3,800 billion means 38 rupees has to be recovered from each, which includes 20 rupees the capacity payment, 10 rupees the energy cost. If you produce 100 billion, then you have to pay for fuel and everything. and then 5 rupees on distribution, and then let's say 2 rupees on transmission. I'm saying in value chain, 15% is the height of wire and pole. Let it to be monopoly. World has not, you cannot afford to have a one pole line here and other here in the same room, let one operator to operate. This is not the cost that makes more matter. The cost lies in the head end, which is generation. Let it to be liberalized. Let it not to be sovereign guaranteed. Let it not to be into the public sector, because I always say those distribution companies whose height is 5 rupees and they are agent of recovery of a 40 rupees. So they might not be caring that whose 30 rupees, 32 rupees of that one is, there's a no stick and reward system from the within the organization or with the boards and all together for the given loss and all together. There has to be a governance improved and all together. The solution was well envisaged in 1992. I start with my presentation. Do the corporatization. It was a height of a WABDA was 7,000 megawatt or 8,000 megawatt. It was easy to manage at that time. Had you been with the one single entity, now it was too big to manage. 45,000 megawatt, 38 million consumer and 100 billion sales is not a joke. This is a big system. So was the corporatization coming, and we did it. And then so was envisaged that we will privatize. So was envisaged that we will do the bring the competition, and so was clearly envisaged in the plans associated with the 1994 energy policy and all together. My domain is not on. I see a very high leadership here. Shahjahan Sahab would be enlightening you all on that one on panel, but little touchstone on that one. The goal was clear. The government of Pakistan and policy side was not blind on that. Implementation has deceived us. Implementation has deceived us. Our plans were the goal. If the other countries that started with them, they have the road ahead to liberalize. NASA did nothing. Express did everything. Privatization and altogether brought the efficiency. The government, once privatizes, if you do the efficiency, then social obligations are met very day. The Chile does everything into a market and privatize market, and then do a billions of dollar social program later on. We do first load the social obligations on the tariffs and all together, making it uniform, cross-subsidizing it, inter-disco rationalization and all together. And then we recover it. And by that time, you have the reducing base loads, the industry loads, and then reducing exports and all together, pressing a pressure on economy now, downward economy now altogether. So 1997 envisaged that there has to be an independent regulator, and the unbundling was done. And then 2002, 10 distribution companies, 8 distribution companies was given license. Later on, the Tesco from Pesco and then Sepco from Hesco got novated. And then operationalized CPP in 2015 with the only single one goal, that you need to operate open up the market and all together, not to become a godfather for procuring all these procurement at the center, which is still today we are in a surplus capacity utilization of all these horses and then tigers that we have into the capacity, which is 45 and 50%. What I'm trying to say, 2,000 billion rupees annually that we are paying to the capacity payments. You have 50%, let's say, utilization for that one. Capability to produce is 200 plus billion. Problem is not with generator. Problem is with the demand side. We would have created the demand and sustained the demand accordingly and incentivized it accordingly. So that's kind of another problem statement. So then later on, CPPA brought in 2000. I mean, this till 2015, everybody says, why market was not open? Should have not been open, could not have been open because we don't have a law on that side. In 1992, we did the plan, but we had to brought the law also. In 2018, the sooner the law came, everybody moved faster, and there I don't see any delay. So starting game was a 2018, the amendment in NEPRA Act that liberalized the market and brought the structural reforms, institutional reforms, that there has to be a system operator, there has to be a market operator to settle the market, and there has to be a system operator to operate the market and plan the market and for whole governing system of the market and altogether. That was done. And then ECC extended the timeline that in May 2022, we need to do a commercial market operation date. For this to have, we need to have a institutional structure. In 2020, high-level design was approved, and in 2022, detailed design was approved, and any policy adopted that one. And exactly on May 2022, exact on that 31st May, the Market Commercial Code and other regulations along with the market operator license was given to CPPA for the market to start with the dry run. So this was the biggest milestone already done. Next slide. So nothing, even we should not be that much those, I mean, just to open the minds that we are just opening as of today, I'm in single buyer regime on behalf of all 10 distribution companies. CPPA is buying it, and then it has a back-to-back power purchase agency agreement with the distribution companies, and front-end power purchase agreement for thermal and energy purchase agreement with the renewable energy-based projects with the IPPs, either in the public sector, having the 50% share plus, or in a private sector generation. And this goes. So this has to end. This has to end. This is single buyer. And where we are heading to, next slide. This is Karan. Simply put, ISCO would be now buying its own Bijli for regulated consumer here. But ISCO have no obligations to buy. If I and UMA do a bilateral contract on for 100 megawatt, they are not obligated to buy on my behalf on sovereign guarantee. We have our own relationship of that 85% of our cost. And then I, as a demand, UMA as a generator, we would be having a bilateral contract on market based. And then we would be only paying that 15% of a cost that we were talking about, the wire and pole. If we do a wheeling on a distribution, then we are responsible for 10% of a cost. And then if we do involve the transmission, then we do for that one. Here, let the shopkeeper to buy its own Bijli and everything, what he can sell. So there is a concept of capacity. The ISCO would be reading the market based on a 5 years demand forecast and power acquisition plan. And then whole current regime is protected. We call it a legacy, and all this generator would be in a pool. And then based on the last 3 years demand forecast, they would be allocated a portion from this pool, and this whole contracted capacity in CPPA pool would be called as a legacy and would remain into a pool with CPPAG. And then as it is under the current regulatory regime, and what is being liberalized in all these demand side 38 million consumers, there is a bulk power consumers of about 3,000, very small in number, and but 15% of an energy would be given a choice they can buy, so that starting from bulk power consumer, the economic activity starts, and there would be a journey to reduce the threshold, and you would start next. Simply, कुछ लोग वो होंगे जो कि they would be dealing with the as a market participant, as a competitive functions, and they would be a participant that would be providing the services. So market operator, service system operator, CPPA, IAA, independent auction administrator. These were the service providers, and generator, trader, BPCs, competitive suppliers, DISCO as a regulated suppliers, SOLRs would be the competitive functions. So ISCO will have the two functions, one regulated on the wire and pole, and the other is the supply business. That supply side, if you are connected with the ISCO and they send you a bill, that the rate would be decided by the NEPRA. But if you buy from a competitive supplier, the rate would be bilateral, but the wire that you use for the ISCO, the rate for that would be determined by the NEPRA and altogether. This is some on the players in the market. Next. We have talked that when the choice is given to there's a concept of eligible consumer, those who can participate in the market. When I call about the market, in Islamabad, any bulk power consumer can buy from n number of suppliers. They have the choice, but the residential, commercial, less than 1 megawatt, I would say rather maybe less than 0.5 megawatt, would not be eligible to have an option. They have to live with the ISCO, but the later in time, when we gradually liberalize from wholesale to the retail side, everybody would be having. This is the journey adopted globally, and this is our need with the surplus capacity over there. We cannot make stranded to the pool and an impact to the 38 million consumer already there. It's a conscious journey taken care. Next. All these markets, I start that the policy, align the policy, regulatory institution framework are aligned. I said it already. When you put this 85% into a bilateral market, then you don't have a circular rate, you don't have this recovery issue, and bilaterally it has to be done, and non-discriminatory open access would be obligated. That improves the condition. Any megawatt getting out of the disco is thereby meaning no sovereign guarantee, thereby meaning reducing the contingent liability on the country, thereby meaning improving the rating risk of the country and altogether, thereby meaning creating a fiscal space for government of Pakistan. Governments have nothing to do. Government should not, all funds and budgets and securities should not be stuck up with all these trades that can be locally done. If K Electric running for 4,000 megawatt utility and altogether can do even 650 megawatt auction with the lowest tariff without sovereign guarantee for calling upon from as a regulated entity and altogether, then why we are stuck up with the sovereign guaranteed procurement and altogether? We have the problems that has to be improved, but let's start with the market, and then that's what is the liability that government should be taking upon. We should be getting out of that thing. When government is happy and should be happy that on the cost of competition, social welfare and choices are available to the consumer is the big thing that the gift would be given by the CTB. CTBCM is a very, sometimes difficult acronym people ask us, but we simply call it wholesale electricity market. To put simply, is a competitive trade, bilateral contract under bilateral regime. Competitive trade, bilateral contract market, basically under bilateral regime. I must say, this is just bilateral contract in a market of just first baby stage. World has gone to a bidding into exchange. Demand doesn't see to supply and supply doesn't see to serve. And then we are just opening that we call it an OTC on the counter. I'm here, Umar is here, we are negotiating, we are signing contract. This is 20 years old concept. But we have to start somewhere. That's the point we need to do. We don't have a choice. We are already delayed by 32 years on that one and don't have a choice on that one. Of course, when we, for 1 megawatt going into a market, I have 1 megawatt contract with Umar need to be available. If he is not available, market penalizes. So this gives the adequacy and security. So for this, all these load shedding and all together, the government and then public sector entities and policy side is always pareshan when you have the shortfall and all. Why government should be responsible for shortfall of a bijli and all together? Government is not always pareshan for aloo, pyaz, tomato if I don't have at my home and everything. That means if they are shortfall, I'm not earning and I'm not feeding my family. So that's way government has to go up to other economic agenda and all together. I'm not sure but the constitutional right, provision of electricity is a constitutional right, whereas it is treated as a commodity everywhere. This is something, a question I leave to the House also. We need to think about that. When if everything comes around, then why if I'm spending let's say half of a million in my month, but the 50,000 rupees bill is something watts. I can buy other things, 50,000 also from the market. Allow me to go to the market. But those who have made the hug to that monopoly, they should leave it, and then they should be taking. But happy to say that the policy side and regulative side is very clear on that one to improve the efficiency and liquidity, liberalization, so the payment discipline, transparency, predictability, accountability comes there. We are moving forward. Next, I think I have Parchi here, a lady. Skip that one. I said a lady, world has gone ahead into the market, and then we have no choice left. We are 30 years already delayed. This is something, CTBCM whole structure, a generator as of today, pursuant to grid code would be connected. Bulk power as of today, pursuant to distribution code would be connected at the right side. In between, open access means the wheeling term is something we need to de-learn. Basically, it's open access, to which we call a use of system charge. You pay transmission service cost, market operator fee, distribution service cost, cross subsidies, stranded costs and losses, and all together. You wheel it, and then you trade at control your cost at your own. This is somewhere, and this only one component. Everything, how to connect, how to deliver, what to get license, and all regulation rules are available. Next. Simply put, two markets, one regulated. ISCO, you have choice to get on a predetermined rate from ISCO. You would have as a BPC choice to buy from the market also. This is whole the two regimes market. So next. Simply put, for the ISCO, now nobody can buy a single electron in Islamabad unless distribution company wish to have it. It has their power demand forecast. They have their power acquisition program. They have complete integrated system planning is in place, and then procurement has to be through the auctions. No more upfront and cost plus tariffs and all together. The legacy, I'm saying, would remain there, but any generator coming for selling to Islamabad, he would be doing a connection agreement separately with the transmission company and power purchase agreement directly with the distribution company. Next. I spoke already. Everything has been done. Regulations, laws, institutional reforms, including the ISMO, Independent Market Operator System, means we are pulling out the system operator from NTDC, and we are pulling out the market operator from CPPA, making it an ISMO independent for three functions: for the operations, for the planning, and then settlement. It's done deal. And then license are to be transferred, and everything is ready. Systems, institutional interventions, legal policy, and capacity building is done. Next. This is, we are done. The market is open. Nothing is open. Go ahead. Next slide. All regulation I spoke, these are, if any of the participant on the sideline discussion, if he wants to be a distributor, trader, or supplier, can talk, I can refer how he can enter. Next. If you don't want to do a bilateral contract, you come in a market and become a merchant, and you sell on a marginal price, is the greatest opportunity would be opening. And let's say any terminated and retired plant is coming for the, and then he can be joined as a merchant, and B2B and bilateral contract with the utilities. No more single buyer, and then we are entering into market. These are three transactions into the market. Next. Simply, BPC, existing BPC who are into the connector, how can they have to give 1 year notice, negotiate the competitive supplier their rate, and the contracts, they have to do a minimum 2-year contract. And then they need to sign a market participation agreement with the market operator, and then they can enter into a market. A new BPC has to sign a connection agreement, get a license. No one notice required. Remaining steps are the same. This is something the nitty-gritty details. Next.
Bhutto, I hate
Closing?
to interrupt. That would be nice.
Okay. Close. Next. I think we are done. Next. These are we talk. So summary, go at the end, and thank you slides. So the point is, last slide. So summary, market is set to open. What is that? is the use of system charge. On the use of system charge, all petitions from distribution companies has been available, and the public proceedings has already been done. Earlier was on the cost of service base, the number was coming too high, 29 rupees for something. But thanks to policy side, and then altogether they have also realization that we need the market. So the other issue was the stranded cost, and there are certain tweakings and cabinet decision required, and then that's government is doing on that one side. Once this is done, then there's our in May, high-level committee was also formed by the Prime Minister of Pakistan for optimal wheeling termination. That committee recommendation probably in the next month or month to come, and that will be landing to the NEPRA, and NEPRA would be issuing the determination, and the numbers should be pretty viable. Of course, not 29, but of course, even not a single digit, but somewhere around, let's say, 12, 13 or somewhere where the viable wheeling can be there and bilateral trade can happen. So it comes, and when this determination is done, following to that one, we have to do a one commercial market operation date declaration, and that declaration is by the NEPRA. And what it does mean by is the approval of revised market commercial code, that we approve it from here. CMOD is declared. You can go and do the trade, and market commercial code. First 6 chapters tell you how you register. Second 6 chapter tell you how you do energy imbalances, and other says capacity trade and all together. So set to launch not later than within 2025. That's my key conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bhutto Saab, for this very technical and insightful presentation on CTBCM. You're very right. There is no power on earth that can undo market liberalization in Pakistan. And market liberalization in Pakistan is important on 2 accounts. First, this highly unsustainable power tariff in Pakistan. Second, the upcoming, again, carbon border adjustment mechanism, where exporting firms would have to compete on the basis of how much sustainable power they use for the manufacturing. So CTBCM and the B2B contracts that can enable, and market liberalization can enable this competitiveness as well. Before Ms. Sobia invite Shahjahan Mirza Saab, let me go towards the private sector. Mr. Umar Malik has joined us online. He is the CEO of Shams Power. Sir, if I may ask you this very intriguing sort of question, that what is your take on upcoming resilience and sustainability fund facility by IMF and its repercussions on Pakistan's fiscal environment, and how do you see this upcoming market liberalization and CTBCM regime, particularly in the light of budget 2025 as well? How do you see what factors can enable the long-term participation of private sector in power sector? What is urgently needed to restore investors' confidence and ensure continued growth, I would say green growth, in distributed solar and other renewable facilities? Sir, over to you.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for having me here today in the conference. Can you all hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, Umar
Yes.
Saab, you are audible. Yeah.
I just wanted to extend my greetings to everybody else who's on the panel. Shahjahan Saab, Ms. Nadia, Bhutto Saab, Umar Bhai, Assalamu alaikum to everyone, Ms. Sobia. You've asked a lot of questions, and you'll have to keep me honest. I might forget some of them. I'll try to summarize my thoughts from what I've understood of your questions. The private sector has always been very resilient in Pakistan. We've been facing energy challenges since the 80s. And if you look at the asset footprint of any Pakistani industry, it looks less like a textile or cement or steel company, and a lot like a textile and a power company, because the asset base is also a lot of captive power generation. So that resilience has always been there. Pakistani industries have, because the grid has not been very stable, always been looking for alternative options. Solar provides an opportunity, and renewables, solar and wind provide an opportunity now for companies to do off-grid implementations of renewable energy with grid parity and even far below grid parity solutions. CTBCM has the opportunity now to provide these same industries with the capability to reduce their energy cost, not just to the tune of 5–10%. And let me break that number down for you. Most factories are limited to rooftop space that can only allow them to set up, solar that will clip 5 to 10% of their load. So that means they can only do 5 to 10% of their energy cost reduction using renewables. The same equation means that they can only reduce 5 to 10% of their carbon footprint from energy by going to renewables. CTBCM gives them an opportunity now to go 100% green. That means that they can reduce their carbon footprint, at least when it comes to the energy component, to 100%. And it also means they can reduce their energy price by 50, 60, 70% by going to renewables. So our company, Shams Power, for instance, does distributed generation. We have clients across the country, which are commercial and industrial clients, food and beverage manufacturers, textile, cement, steel companies, and we can only reduce their energy footprint by between 5 and 15% because there's a space limitation. There's a limitation in terms of the solar availability. It's only daytime generation. Even if you can do a hybrid wind solar, you could maybe do maximum 15, 20, 25%. So that limitation goes away if CTBCM comes in place. We've been working with the stakeholders for CTBCM for quite some time, and it's encouraging that, like Bhutto Saab said, and Umar Saab will also probably agree that it is going to happen, inshallah, this year, but it's also been in the making now for several years. So it's about time that we do it. Whatever discussions need to take place on the wheeling charge should conclude, and they should be launched immediately. Now, why is this important for Pakistan? Pakistan, and I'll just give you some perspective. In these recent US tariffs, you've seen that Pakistan has immediately become more competitive when it comes to exports because our regional competitors have been tariffed a little bit more than us. So Pakistan has the possibility of increasing its exports because we look a little more attractive. Why did we not look very attractive before? It's because our energy cost is so high that our exports are just not competitive. We got a little bit of reprieve because of the currency deval, but otherwise, $15 of electricity cost is not sustainable for any industry to be export oriented. So when you have companies that are exporting textile products to Europe or the US, where they are very sensitive to cost, but they're also very sensitive to the carbon footprint, we fail on both fronts. We are not cost competitive, and on the carbon footprint level, we don't perform very well. That is not to say that this cannot change. There are factors that you can change. So if we come up with conducive policies on the energy side, we can reduce the energy cost to the point that our textile and other exporting companies can export products to Europe, bring in foreign exchange to Pakistan. And this is foreign exchange that if we do not get it from exports, we will be borrowing it from the commercial market at LIBOR plus. The cost of that is far higher than what it would cost us to open up this market. Sure, I understand there are constraints on good paying customers going off grid, and there is reluctance on the disco side, but there is far more to be gained from $10, $15 billion in increased exports, and what that means for us when we are starved in terms of foreign exchange. This is foreign exchange that if it doesn't come, we'll be taking new loans at very high commercial debt rates. To give you another perspective, for CTBCM, there is another large angle that continues to be ignored, and Bhutto Saab and Umar Saab know about this because we've been advocating this for the last 3 years. A lot of companies who are in Pakistan are who are large multinationals are some of the largest foreign direct investment providers to Pakistan. Secondly, these are also Pakistan's largest taxpayers. When it comes to companies like Nestle, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, British American Tobacco, and others, these companies are the largest taxpayers for Pakistan, whether it's withholding income tax or GST. By not providing them with a greening of their supply chain solution, we are pushing them to stop investing in Pakistan, and it might be even worse. We might push them to leave Pakistan in the next 10 years. These companies have very strong global carbon footprint requirements. You've heard of net zero, you've heard of the 2025 target, you've heard of the 2030 targets. These companies are not joking about this. These are very serious requirements for foreign companies operating in Pakistan. And if we do not provide them with an opportunity to go green, these companies will not only reduce their investment in Pakistan, they might even start moving away. And then what will we be left with? We'll be left with local companies taking their place, and the government will not have the same kind of revenue collection from them. So those are just some requirements. I'll also leave a small number with you all, food for thought. And I hope, Umar Bhai, you and Bhutto Sahab, you will not hold this against me because it'll scare some people. Pakistan imported close to 30,000 megawatts of solar in the last 3 years. We are today the largest importer of Chinese solar equipment after Saudi Arabia. 30,000 megawatts of solar, and none of this was for grid-tied, let's say, IPP capacity, maybe a little bit for IPP capacity. Everything else was commercial, industrial, and residential. These 30,000 megawatts went into the Pakistani economy and took away electrons that should have been generated by IPPs and consumed by Pakistani consumers. If we had done CTBCM 3 years ago, and if we had ensured that not all 30,000 would have gone to CTBCM, let's say even 10,000 would have gone to CTBCM. And we would have, maybe put our heads together between NEPRA, CPPA, and the discos and the industry and come up with a tariff for, let's say, for simplicity reasons, 10 rupees, which is something that no party was willing to accept before. The government wasn't willing to accept, the discos weren't willing to accept, and the industry wasn't willing to accept. You could have had 10,000 megawatts of CTBCM installed today at a tolling cost, wheeling cost of 10 rupees, which would have given you $500 million of wheeling charges in perpetuity. What do you get for that today? Nothing. That electricity is now gone forever off grid. Our grid consumption has gone from 130,000 gigawatt hours to 105,000 gigawatt hours. That's a 25% demand compression. That did not just come from industries shutting down. It came from a lot of people going off grid. So I'll just pause there. It's a few things that I've said. I'm sorry, sir, if I've answered all of your questions. I missed the IFC one. I'm sorry, I'm not well equipped to answer that. I'm not fully aware of that, but I'm happy to answer more in terms of how the industry can, potentially work together with the government so that this year we implement a successful CTBCM rollout. We can guarantee that they can be an uptick in terms of growth in the country, in terms of electricity consumption using the wires more than what it is happening right now. And I think the proof is going to be in trying this. Let's try it. And of course, there's always going to be room for realignment. In 12 months, you can realign and see what has happened. Open up CTBCM in a limited way, maybe do a couple of 100 megawatts per year, keep assessing the situation. And like with net metering, we went through it, we allowed it. Now we've gone through some period of readjustment. That's how things work.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you also for this reality check. I hope that you'll be staying with us a little while longer so we can loop back to you. I'm sure we have more questions.
I'll be available.
Extremely kind. And we will also be taking you up on that offer of working closer together with national partners on sense checking of what we're doing. Mirza Sab, thank you very much for your patience and thank you also for joining us this morning. You heard from the regulator, you heard from the private sector. Based on everything that we have, what has been said this morning, what specific shifts in Pakistan's energy investment framework do you think are needed to facilitate a low carbon industrial base? You heard Omar talk about possible market exits. We have been working very closely with the textile industry on getting them CBAM ready. So what do we have to do in order to make sure that we have an integrated energy planning approach, that we're prioritizing climate concerns as well as fiscal sustainability? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. Good morning and Assalamu alaikum. I think a couple of points before directly going to the question. It is always great to come into such discussion and such seminars. Actually, this is good learning for all of us. We continue learning from the various stakeholders. I think when we talk about the alignment of the climate change policy with the fiscal regime, with the budgets and everything, now everybody realized that this is actually not a luxury as it was 10, 15 years before. Our developing countries were thinking that this is probably luxury or a fashion or a buzzword, climate change for the developed countries, for the rich nations. But now it has become a compulsion for us, countries like us, for developing countries. The CBAM is becoming operational, carbon tax is becoming implementing in many countries. So I think this is the right time, and I must appreciate the efforts of the organizers, the Planning Commission, DIC, Pak German Corporation, KFW, STPI, for organizing this seminar and discussion before the budget. Because what I have seen in my own experience working with the government for the last 30 years, that whenever we make policies, generally it's not an inclusive process. We just make the policies, whatever me thinking is right from my knowledge or some other people who are making policies. So this is actually, I think, an excellent initiative to have an inclusive approach and asking the stakeholders that what actually the problem, where the shoe pinches actually, because we try to guess that where the shoe pinches for the other person. So we need to do this process again and again, and I'm happy to learn that this is not the only workshop. So there'll be a few more workshops actually to get input from the real stakeholders who are really affected from these policies. But one point, I think this is slight digression from the main topic. But what I have seen in government in Pakistan, particularly in developing countries, we're not bad in making policies. Our main failure comes in when we come to the implementation of these policies, because mostly these policies define the goals in the qualitative manner. There are generally no timelines and no quantitative goal to assess the implementation of the policy. Just to give one example, like now we are saying that we have surplus capacity, power generation capacity in Pakistan. But why do we have this surplus capacity? There is one key factor, of course, which has been talked here is the rooftop solar. So that metering solar rooftop systems have added 4,500 megawatt, which is a big number, and 30,000 is reported in the last 3 years. Maybe the non-grid connected and behind the meter setup is like maybe another 10, 15,000. But one thing which I think as a country we have not been able to do, I'll just give one example of the CPAC. I'm part of the CPAC discussion starting from 2013. So PPIP and myself has been working in the expert planning group, also in the JCCs and supporting and the Joint Energy Working Group. So we have been talking about at that time there was a severe energy shortages. Islamabad was witnessing a load shedding of 12 hours, 1 hour off, 1 hour on. So in that rush, the CPAC was launched. At that time, there was no other country willing to invest in Pakistan. So I must appreciate Chinese government and Chinese companies to come forward. But the point which I want to raise that working the power division, the PPIP, working very diligently, we have brought in about 13,000 megawatt of power generation under the sea from different resources. It has renewable resources, it has coal, it has hydropower. But where I think our failure, if I say it's a very strong word, is since 2013 I've been listening about the 7 special economic zones which were to be set up under the China Economic Zone corridor, and unfortunately none of them is operational today. So the planning was made at that time that there will be 7 special economic zone operational in the next 5 years. And we will be actually, our GDP will be growing between 4 to 5%. So we did that and we actually contracted the generation capacity. It may not be at optimal prices because whenever you are in the corner, basically there is strong need. So probably you are not in a position to do a strong bargaining or hard bargaining. But the point which I want to make is that the policy implementation and target achievement is our probably weaker area compared to the policy formulation. So with this, I would like to highlight that, as I said earlier, that climate change, alignment of the policy, alignments of action, alignment of program, alignment of planning with the climate change action is no more luxury. It has become necessity because of CBAM and other parameters which are being taken by various countries for taxing the carbon and probably restricting the imports from those countries which are unable to meet the target. But one good news, I think, at the same time is if we look at the power generation side, the last year our number shows that Pakistan has generated 55% of its electricity from the clean resources. It includes renewable energy, hydro, and of course, nuclear, renewable energy and nuclear. So clean energy is for 55%. So this is a good thing. And the policy setting in 2019 says that we'll be having 60% clean power generation or clean energy from the clean energy. So I expect that probably by 2030 will exceed this target of renewable energy. Coming back to policy formulation, I think again in the policy formulation, we need to work on the coordinated approach and cohesion between the various stakeholders. The work which is being done in the power sector, which has not been done previously, that is the 10-year generation expansion plan. It was made twice previously, but that was not such a robust exercise. This time we are making the generation expansion plan for the next 10-year, 2025 to 35. And we are trying to actually make it integrated plan, only including the transmission system expansion plan. So this is actually 2 parts, the generation expansion aligned with the transmission expansion. But I think this is only first step, because when we talk about the energy sector planning, energy is not only power, energy is not only petroleum. The transport also uses energy. What is the right choice for the country? The fuel, we all know that we have depleting gas reserves. We have to import a lot of oil. So it is not only energy sector by power generation, it's transport, it's other agriculture, wherever this energy is being used. So we need to take all this planning together, because whatever impact it puts on the foreign exchange resources, it puts on the environment, that has to be looked into together. So when I say that the next step, the integrated energy planning, that's not the energy with the petroleum products and with the power generation. It's energy to be used everywhere in the country, in all the sectors. It's industrial sector, it's transport sector, it's agriculture sector. So everywhere industry is used. So we need to have that kind of planning, and we need to base our policies to look into that what kind of fuel need to be prioritized, what resources we have, what kind of emissions we are going to face. Because in industry, I think we don't have any specified mechanism or any regular mechanism actually to take for the emissions of the industries. Though Provincial Environment Protection Agency work on that, but I don't think it's really a very regular and solid work which can give a true picture of the take of the greenhouse gases emission. So in this context, I think we need, when we take the policies, we need to look into this aspect also, that one policy, what effect is will leave on the other policy or the other sector. So no, the planning is not only one sector, it's all sectors of the country, and I'm sure the Planning Commission is taking lead in that, and this workshop is evident of that. Similarly, when we talk about, we have listened about the CTPCM, I think this is a one big major step which actually changed the scenario in the power sector. In terms of creating competition and in terms of reducing liabilities on the government. But again, the fortunate thing is that when we are trying to achieve the more and more clean and renewable energy, this is probably the cheapest source of energy in the world, because of a lot of effort and research is going into that. And with the advent of breakthrough in the battery storage price and battery storage technologies, I think in the next couple of years, probably we're going to see a lot of batteries, and probably grid will face another challenge when the battery becomes cheaper. Then probably those consumers which are now come back to the grid in the evening, probably they will also not come back to the grid. So in that context, grid has a major challenge to handle. CTPCM is a partial answer to that, but we need to look into that, how we can actually reduce the prices, how we can bring in more efficiency into the sector to actually make it more competitive with the private sector generator, which will be coming into the market. So in that context, the policies need to be reviewed very thoroughly. This is probably, I think it's an uncertain time for the energy sector particularly, because we are launching the CTBCM market, and we are looking probably a major breakthrough in the technologies for the generation. So maybe some people say maybe down the road, after 10 years, the grid will become redundant. Everybody will have its own generation and the battery backup. So people who can afford, they will not stay with the grid. So these are the challenges we are facing. We need to look into and cover that. One effort which we are making, Ministry of Climate Change has actually assigned this assignment to PPIB, and I'm leading the preparation of NDC3 for the country on the mitigation side. So major role on the mitigation is the energy and the transportation side. So this time we're trying to take a holistic view with the stock taking of the progress on the NDC2, which was launched in 2021. We are also trying to cover the whole spectrum and a wholesome approach. We're looking into the transport, we're looking into the agriculture, we're looking into the health, we're looking into the wastage, and we have included GAZ is also supporting us. So this NDC3 is actually, we're trying to cover all the sector which can actually contribute to the greenhouse gases emission. In terms of way forward, in the new IGSEP, as I said, 2025-35 generation expansion plan, so there is actually no thermal power plant in the planning. This is all hydro and renewable resources which are coming up. And with this, we are expecting probably the CO2 emissions going to reduce by 2/3 by 2035. So that is a great sign. Currently, we have around 340 gram per kilowatt hour of the CO2, but it will reduce to about 110, 120 grams. So this is a good sign. In terms of making fiscal incentive, I think you must be reading in the newspaper. In terms of rooftop solar, we now feel that this is now over-incentivized, and we need to rationalize that, because then this 2015 policy was announced, NEPRA announced the regulation, and then at that time AEDB, now PPIB, issued the certification regulation, because without that there was no quality assurance, and the equipment was substandard equipment was installed, and if there is some problem, no after-sale service was there. So we issued, AEDB issued 2018 certification guidelines, where we certify the installers and we set the standards that what kind of equipment they will install, what kind of warranties they will be issued, what kind of standard agreements are available. So this scheme has been quite successful. But the fact is that in 2015, when this parameter was set up, the net metering, we adjust the unit to unit, and then there were rates which were decided for by maybe the power have been less than 2 months. So that will not only reduce the emission in the country, but that will also save the resources which are being developed, which are being applied for development of the power projects, which are only used about 2 months or 1.5 months in a year. So these are some of the areas on which we need to focus. But of course, renewable energy stays on the top priority of the government, and we are facilitating and encouraging as much as we can. So I would really be really interested to learn from the stakeholders that what kind of improvement we can actually make into this policy to make this renewable energy more into the grid. But again, there are challenges. Government is working on that because induction of large quantum of renewable energy requires very strong, robust, and digitized grid, which we don't have. So because this is intermittent energy, it is available in the solar is available in the daytime. Sometimes there is cloud, wind is available in the evening. But again, the wind is so uncertain that it gives a lot of jolt to the grid when there are instances that 5 minutes before the wind generation was like 1000 megawatt, and 5 minutes after that, there's only 100 megawatt is being generated because, from these power plants. So these are the challenges on which government is working to make the grid online and digitize the grid and install the SCADA system. So I think that's all from my side. My focus has remained obviously on the energy and power side. So I'll be happy to answer any questions later on. Thank you very much.
Mirza Saab, thank you so much. That was incredibly valuable. I don't know if I mentioned to you that the GIZ has started a project on digitalization and decarbonization of the power distribution network. So we are very much there. A lot of valuable comments from your side. We deeply appreciate that. I'm also very, very happy that you mentioned the NDC, because this is really the next step, linking policies with the NDC and making sure that there's a very robust trajectory. I understand that you have, unfortunately, you can't stay with us, but I do hope you join us also for the next dialogue. It's been a real pleasure to have you with us. And with that, we move over now to our colleague from CPPA, Khalid.
Thank you so much, Sobia. Thank you, Mirza Saab. This brings us to Central Power Purchasing Agency, CPPAG. It plays a pivotal role in defining, setting tariff, particularly the energy power purchasing tariff. Mr. Umar Haroon Malik, he is the head of strategy and power market Development at CPPAG. Sir, my question to you would be, given these fiscal constraints, given these multiple challenges at power sector, particularly in terms of high energy cost, uh, in terms of capacity charges, in terms of these huge subsidies, how do you see that the, the goal of decarbonization that goes along with the restructuring of subsidies, prioritization of renewable energy, and what role does market liberalization play in encouraging the adoption of low carbon technologies in the industrial sector? Overall, what Pakistan needs right now is to increase the industrial consumption of electricity so that the power tariff can be brought down. So your comments on that and the previous discussion as well. Over to you.
Subir, Mike.
Bismillah. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us here in this dialogue. As I've been introduced, my name is Umar Harun Malik. I'm head of market operation and development at CPA. CPA today is the market operator and is also an agent of ISCOs managing their all legacy contracts. But very soon you will see that this market operator function and the system operator function will be shifted to a new entity which is called Independent System and Market Operator of Pakistan, ISM. So, inshallah, in months or so, me and my colleagues from the CC, Zikir Sahab sitting on the left side of the table. So, we will be introduced from ISM platform, inshallah. So, Bhutto Sahab talked about ISM, so I'll not go into details there. I'll answer your question, sir. And then I have identified two challenges, three challenges, and I have a comment, and I also wanted to discuss and inform the audience that how the distributed generation is integrated in the comparative market, especially in developed comparative markets, North American markets, Australia, etc. So I'll take not more than like 4 or 5 minutes. So starting with your question that how the market will facilitate the RE integration, it's very simple because once you allow the bulk power consumers, the private participants, they will move very fast in terms of bringing in renewables, right? Because now we all know renewables are not only cheap. Renewables are not only cheap, but they are cheap also and clean as well, right? So in terms of if I'm an industrialist, so it is a very easy kind of a decision for me that I need to sustain. Maybe even today I'm producing locally, tomorrow I can export also. So it's clean and cheap, so I will go for that. However, its integration in the market casts some shadows of uncertainty because we don't, these commercial players don't know what the marginal prices of the day and night and different timings would be. And, there is impact on their commercial transaction. So there is some risk anticipated in their earlier days, especially also thinking that when you have more penetration of REs during the daytime, the marginal prices will go low and at the night it will increase. However, so this is something that, I'll talk about that later on, but this is kind of a perceived risk that they have. However, the cost of batteries are also decreasing with time. So we think that in few months down the road, right now, this is not a big significant issue for the grid that the difference between the day and night marginal prices are, significant enough to pose a risk for their, it's a barrier to their entry, not right now. Maybe 5-6 years down the road, it may be. But batteries cost as they are going down, we think that they may can integrate batteries in like having with solar and with wind, with batteries, maybe, their total cost of production, including the risk of imbalances would not be more than 10 to 11 cents. Maybe 5 years, 6 years down the road. So that risk will be merely mitigated there. So short answer is yes, the REs will for sure CTBC because government moves on its own pace. They plan, then they actually get funding around, and then need to get up several approvals, and then by the time you take approval, things have changed, right? And then you say stop. Maybe that we need to change the decision. Private sector will definitely move fast, and the VRs will be integrated in a very fast manner. As Umar Saab said earlier, that 10 to 15% of the space has been utilized internally, and there is a lot of potential, which is basically they need space outside to wheel power from clean and cheap resources like VREs. Now I have some identified, we all know about these challenges, but my request to this, to Planning Commission and their partners right now here is with GIZ, our German partners and others. Uh, so I'll identify those challenges. We all know about them, but I'm not like very, maybe please forgive my knowledge that maybe I'm not privy to that knowledge, that there's some like work is already going down in the field. The first thing is about we all know that the transmission network is the marketplace where you can do the trading. If let's say the road network between Lahore and Islamabad is choked out, how can you do trading? It will not happen. So right now we know that our grid is becoming inflexible. It is being constrained, especially considering the influx of renewables. And I think Zikriya Saab will go into detail. He can, about the events that are happening right now, that how low the demand is going at the daytime and what kind of challenges system operator has to basically is facing and the flexibility that they have at their hand. So as the VR is being integrated, you need to make your grid more flexible and reliable and resilient, but it comes up with a cost. And there are solutions around it also. For example, you have, technically talking about they will point it out in detail, but you can have synchronous condensers, you can have statcoms, but main thing is about the batteries, best devices in the field. So I think what we need to do, and my request to our partners here on the left side is, that as I've heard that maybe you also provide technical assistance. So the technical assistance is definitely required, in my understanding, to the power sector, not only for the technical modeling of the batteries, but for the commercial modeling and solutions as well. Apart from the financing, because initially, if you say that the market will bring in batteries as merchants, I think it will be a difficult thing to do unless, let's say, 2-3 years down the road, when they know what are the marginal prices, they are credibly discovered, they are paid out. So maybe 2-3 years, 4 years down the road, yes, financing can come in for merchant batteries also. But initially, yes, the financing support will also be required. So I would suggest that there are several models in UK, US being implemented in terms of integrating the batteries in the capacity markets or for frequencies regulation, etc. But we need to get your guidance if that can be provided, right? So that will be really helpful. As as Bhutto Sahab has said, we are about to launch inshallah CTBCM, but we were thinking that this batteries issue and their integration will come later, but it is coming sooner than we expected. So I think we need to start tomorrow if that is possible. The second thing, we all think that we think that the demand is decreasing is a big challenge, but it comes up with an opportunity as we know that the whole world is eyeing to change the final energy mix, which is now 20% electricity and 80% rest of the energy fuel sources, right? Like coal, liquid fuel, etc. So Pakistan also has this opportunity. If I'm not wrong, it is less than maybe around 20% in our final energy mix. Electricity is about 20 or 18 odd percent. I'm not sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but around that number. But there's an opportunity that we have excess energy in the grid, central power plants also, and then the rooftop solar and other VR is being installed. 30,000 megawatt, as my friend said, that they're out there. So people are financing it. So there is excess of energy. So we need to find opportunities to increase the load. And how that can happen is, we all know that you can start doing space heating, use electric geysers, electric vehicles, and whatnot. Increase the electrical load in the system so that the use of electricity is increased and the use of fossil fuels is decreased in other supply chains, which actually helps us in CBAM across the value chain as well. But having said that, where is that concentrated effort? Because I think there is different ministries are involved. One is power division, petroleum division. There is an energy advisory board as well, which has to do something with with innovation, technology transfer, and policy making. So I think there has to be a concept paper with all dimensions covered, and then engagement of the stakeholders, make a plan, involve us all. There has to be a very dedicated, pointed out team, because this is something that is required. Otherwise, it's a one-way journey. We are going down because there's a lot of stranded costs in the system. If the demand is not going to increase and we don't collaborate all together, somebody needs to facilitate this, so that we do this transition towards increase in demand and shifting our increasing our electricity demand from other sources of energy. That's very important. And I would also like to highlight the role of ISMO in this. The Independent System and Market Operator of Pakistan, apart from doing other functions, will also be doing the demand side management and facilitating the increase in demand. NICA is very one important, entity in this whole thing, but ISMO will be another important entity in this. So please do involve ISMO in this, and we will be very keen to work with this kind of working group to make sure that the demand is increased. So that is the second recommendation, that please do something about it. I don't know if something is happening already, but I have not seen. This is not in my knowledge at least. The third challenge that is about where I wrote it is about CBAM. CBAM, we all know that in industry it's about electricity is about maybe 10 to 35%, or maybe if steel melting, if steel melter they use more electricity, but they are very few in terms of percentage if we talk about the whole industrial demand in the system. So typically the average is around 15 to 25%. But what about the other parts of the supply chain? Where is that integrated effort going on to make sure that the industry, they get, let's say, there's an industry that gets electricity from VREs, so they are 20% clean. What about the rest of 80%? So who is working on that? Is there a team assigned at the central level to make sure that right from the raw material, their transportation, their processing, their packaging, and then shipment, all the emissions will be seen, and they will. So where is that measurement mechanism? Where is that team centrally assigned to make sure that this whole supply chain is becoming clean, not only this 20-25% part? So I think that is also a very important thing, and where our donor partners and the technical assistance can come in, and you can help us, because otherwise we were talking about this, it will be only 20-25% or 30%. In some industries, yes, it will be higher, but this is important. The another comment I want to make is about the integration of, as we know that it is no longer one-way traffic of generation and consumption at the other end. So we have the whole world has seen now that there is distributed generation coming in, which has not only made planning very difficult for the distribution companies, but they have come up with some solutions. For example, we'll talk about some North American markets, New York ISO, AEMO in Australia. What they have done is that they have also given an opportunity to a concept which is called DER aggregators, distributed energy resource aggregators. So they have their wholesale market. They have these kind of suppliers or aggregators in which they allow them that, for instance, if you have AMR installed solar PV at your rooftop, so they will know and aggregate there in let's say 500,000 homes, 5-10 kilowatts each. So you're talking about thousands of megawatts. So they aggregate and sell this aggregate to a central ISO or ISMO at the marginal price. So on behalf of the households, there is an aggregator supplier in between which integrates them in the market. So this is a choice for them. This is not enforced. So because the larger the pool is, this is what we need to understand. The larger the pool is, the larger is the opportunity to match the deficits of supply with the opportunities of deficits of demand, deficits and the surpluses. The smaller the pool, the lesser is this opportunity, right? So the bigger the pool you have, for example, if you have the whole grid, there is surplus of solar in Lahore and this deficit in Karachi, you can supply it. If you want to isolate, let's say, the DRs only in Lahore, the surplus will go waste, right? So you need the grid in between from the economic perspective to integrate. So, they were smart enough to introduce such concepts. So their ISOs are already integrating and dispatching them centrally since 2018. And they're encouraging this concept, and we will definitely, CTBC will take care of this as well. Lastly, I would like to comment on this concept note about point number 1 and 2, and some of my friends sitting here can answer this. Our assumption is that renewables have already been so cheap, right, and clean also. So why the subsidy is required? For instance, as we see today, K Electric. So what was the cost that K Electric has got to compete?
The loss on the hybrid was 3.2 3 cents on a hybrid.
3.01 and 3.4, 150 megawatts are running. So around average 10 rupees, and the cost is going down. Yeah, 9 to 10. So this variability and the threat of variability and the impact of marginal prices will be covered through batteries as well. So the question is that when we talk about renewable energy subsidies, so what is basically the driver of it? Why do we think that they still need subsidies? Secondly, so this is the first question. Maybe somebody can answer this later. And the second question is about the point number 2, which talks about financial market reforms and competitive trading environment. In this, there has been a point of note about contract for differences. On one side, protecting them, and other side, stopping them for getting windfall profits, right? So, market is all about getting risks. For example, if somebody installs a battery and they see today that at the daytime, the marginal prices are very low, I can charge. And at the night time, the marginal prices are very high. They come as merchants. So this is, whatever profit they make, it will help the grid. Eventually, what will happen is that more people will see, and there will be a snowball effect. The more the people charge in the daytime and the more they discharge in the night time, the marginal price of the day will increase, and that will, at the night will decrease, and you will see a flat curve of demand. So that is favorable to us. But this is something like, very aggressive. I know certain countries have taken the approach of CFDs, maybe in Spain and other countries, initially to secure it. But these are my two questions, that if you leave it to the market also, let them have profits as they want, but it will actually help you. In short term, you will see that there's a windfall profits, but eventually 2-3 years down the road, when people will come in and jump in, just like, like other technologies also, if they come in as merchants, nothing against us, because it will help us. In the daytime, they will be paying the marginal price, and in the night time, they will be decreasing the marginal price for the consumers. So these are my 2 comments at the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Umar Saab. These are very helpful. I think we can come on to the RE subsidies later and windfall profits. Yeah, thank you so much for those. This brings us to Bhutto Saab, if you would like to add a few things. So
Yes,
just very brief.
Yeah. I think it has been very great. I mean, I forgot to specifically thank to Wolfgang, Jose. I mean, the hall, I would be the most beneficiary of their support. We know the market is coming. We want to make a resilient network. So they are working with us on distribution calls. Team of experts from them, and they are live, and I have a third session with them on 2:30 on Thursday. We know that the market is coming, and then everything will be haphazard. We would be needing the regulations on the ancillary services, and altogether we are working with the ancillary regulation with them. The ancillary markets are bigger in Europe. We know that the net metering and distributed generation has become now a challenge to the network of whole Lahore. On the day of Eid, load was 600 megawatts versus the last year 1200. Most of the grids were net exporting. The national load was 600 megawatt, I think SO team can say, versus the last year 10,000. Thereby meaning you need to have some adjustment on that. We are working on the net metering or something distributed regulations framework with them. So thank you, Wolfgang and JZ on this, and we have signed MOU with them, and we look forward to continuing that one. These are our future challenges, and then we expand with you. Last but not the least, even they are helping us on the different aspect. That's authority. We had about 780 billion investment plans, and on that one on technical assistance. So when I said CTBCM is not cannot undo, was not legal comment. When the CBM is coming, tariffs are imposed, distributed generations options are there. Lucky Cement has put 20 megawatt solar, 20 wind, and 10 megawatt battery. They have said Allah Hafiz to HESCO. So if this is the case, then you need not to lose the revenue of 15% that comes to you on a wire. Umar Malik wisely said to scale it up. So that's the need. Otherwise, the grids may go in an excellence. The big call for that one in the concept notes has wisely covered might not be. We had an RE financing, 6% straight financing and the state bank, that was limited and that didn't work and funds were not there. It's not, may not be the state bank, it's a global issue. Cost of capital, cost of funds in the RE tariff is 46% for the developing countries. Too much, too well. Where is this funding going? The global 80% solar production is China, consumption is we, financing is available there, technology is there. For hydrogen, solar, nuclear, everything is doing China, US is doing on CCUs, Europe is saying, I will stick up with my green, I have a shallow sea, so I'm doing everything on the wind on that one. The money is there. So DFIs has to come forward and then give their financing, cheaper financing, so that if, like Umar says, if I have a 3.4 cents solar tariff here in Pakistan and 1.5 cents in Dubai, what's the difference? Is the risk and cost of capital, nothing less, nothing more. So DFIs has to come forward for the financing. And the last thing on the market, the big challenge is the credit cards. If I put a plant, so the AFIs we are lacking. There is a sovereign guarantee options and all together to succeed with the markets and all together, we would be needing the global, partners like that one for the credit risk assessment and credit covers and all together. So when I do a bilateral with Dr. Khalid, then I should have an assurance that there is somebody is certifying my credit worthy is an opportunity for the DFIs. They have to get out of funding, giving funds to the public sector, investment and all together. This is the opportunity for them. We can tap for that. Thank you. Yeah. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Omar. Thank you very much, Gul Hassan. The next question is to Zakaria Saab. Mohammed Zakaria joins us. He is Chief Engineer, Operational Planning at the NPCC. I was looking for you. Thank you. Zakaria Saab, how can fiscal instruments and target government incentives be better leveraged to attract private investments? And especially for NTDC's infrastructure upgrades, as well as grid modernization, energy storage, and other issues that Omar Haroon Malik now just mentioned. What would you say is needed to promote really a low carbon energy transition in this country? Over to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. I think I have been introduced. I'm Mohammed Zakaria, Engineer Operational Planning in National Power Control Center. You can say it as System Operator of Pakistan. Thank you for giving the opportunity to represent us in this forum. As the System Operator of Pakistan National Grid, we oversee the technical function of the grid planning and operation, while fiscal policies, I think, somehow is not in our domain. The increasing grid complexity and technical challenges we are today facing have need urgent and well-aligned fiscal reforms to enable a secure and sustainable energy transition. I will quote a sentence from the Pakistan adopted the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda as its National Development Agenda, SDG 7, says, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all, which shows a reflection of the energy trilemma encompassing the three core components among the five, the dimensions, core dimension, energy system, energy equity, energy security, and environmental sustainability. Achieving the goals requires a balanced and holistic approach where reliable and secure energy supply must be given equal importance alongside affordability and sustainability. So I will focus that as we strive towards cleaner, greener, and low carbon sources, it is crucial that we do not compromise the security and stability of the grid system. So many things have been discussed earlier by Mirza Shahjahan Saab and Arun Malik as well. So I will highlight some operational challenges here with National Grid. The recent surge in solar PV installation in Pakistan, I will discuss. Beyond its commercial implication, it exerting continuous significant pressure on the national grid. We are facing severe growing operational challenges in maintaining the grid stability along with the increasing uncertainty in long-term system planning. Increasing in net metering and PV solarization since last year, we are facing the operational challenges. I witnessed the major challenge we faced during these Eid holidays, that it became very challenging for us to maintain the grid system. During the Eid day, we have to curtail all the renewable energy resources to meet the decreased demand of the grid system of Pakistan. One example, Lahore Electric Supply Company is the major shareholder in our national grid energy mix. Its the lean period demand of the LESCO remains 2,000 megawatt. During last summers, LESCO draws 5,000 megawatt from the national grid. You can imagine during the 3 days holiday, the day demand of LESCO Lahore supply decreased to 600 megawatt. It should draw 2,200 megawatt from the national grid. Rather, it draws 600 megawatts. So how can we manage, being system operator, the grid system of Pakistan? We curtailed all the wind energy sources, even solar, interconnected with national grid, the Karyazam solar and other solar generators we have disconnected from the grid to meet the minimum demand of the grid. So these are the challenges. As the clean energy transition accelerate the rapid integration of the variable renewable energy. So the fiscal reform instrument and incentives should encourage investment to enhance the grid flexibility, which may include that earlier said something, the contention mode. We are working on the condensation of the old thermal grids, of government-owned thermal grids. There should be smart grid system like SCADA. We are working on SCADA system, the upgradation of SCADA, WAMPEG, the wide area monitoring. We can say that renewable energy is cheaper, accessible to everyone, but a negative impact that the grid system strengthening requires an inertia. In electrical engineering, we say that from inertia, grid inertia. So renewable has the very limited grid inertia. So if we focus on the major contribution of the renewables, we will lose the grid stability, having the low level of pressure. So we need storage technologies to meet the intermittency of these renewables. We need ancillary services, already said Mr. Gulasan Butku. We need generation flexibilization. We too have to upgrade our national transmission network along with the distribution network. We have to some regulatory support frameworks to oversee all these challenges. In addition to all these, I will specifically highlight that we should emphasize on cleaner fossil fuel technologies rather than we have to phase out all the fossil fuel from our national grid. I can say that fossil fuel have significant importance in the national grid to maintain its stability and security. So we have a cleaner fossil fuel technology. We can, irrespective of the phase out, we can improve, we can decarbonize, we can control the emissions from the fossil fuel plants with the supportive technologies our neighbor countries have introduced already in their coal plants. They do not phase out the coal plants. They add the technologies which decarbonization, encourage decarbonization that has been commissioned, they control. So these are some suggestions from my side, being the system operator of Pakistan. So we have a limited time, so I will continue from these. And we will support this forum and our technical expertise in writing whenever and where physical presence will be needed. We will be with you.
Very grateful. Thank you very much, Zakaria sir. Khalid.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zakriya sir. Those were very technical inputs, and thank you so much for being part of the forum. This brings us to opening the. No, I guess we have one more expert with us from Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Tobia, I guess.
Dr. Heather, such
Yeah.
a pleasure to have you with us today. Given your work on macroeconomic growth, how can initiatives like Udan Pakistan inform the design of climate-aligned fiscal policy, one that supports structural transformation as well as green industrialization, taking into account long-term macroeconomic stability? Over to you. I'll bring you the mic.
Thank you very much, Sobia. My name is Heather Ali, and I'm from Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. I work in macroeconomic growth section. So having heard Ms. Nadia and Mr. Umar Malik about how important is basically low carbon economy regarding economic growth of Pakistan. I find, very hard to value add something in the debate, but let me try to give another point of view from macro-fiscal policy framework. Pakistan energy transition is basically limited by the fiscal constraint. Our fiscal constraint is generating the energy sector problems. We cannot convert that the energy sector on low carbon footprints, and our energy sector burden, that is also generating the fiscal constraints for the economy. That's why the fiscal space is very low for Pakistan to transform transform its energy sector. So let me highlight how different policy options could help Pakistan to generate that fiscal space to reform its energy sector. So fiscal policy by theory is about taxation, expenditures, and the difference between tax and expenditure, that is public debt. So I will highlight 3 points: how Pakistan tax system, how its expenditure side and debt could help in creating some space of fiscal policy for energy sector transformation. The first one is about taxes. The international practice about carbon footprint is that they charge those
Misobia wala.
I'm sure you did everything right. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you very much. So the first thing is to generate revenue from this for this green economy. And in international economies, we have seen that developed countries charge green tax or the carbon tax. There have been many debates in case of Pakistan as well, but carbon tax has never been implemented in case of Pakistan. So through carbon taxation and through carbon permits, though there are so many caveats, the framework is not there, the research is not there, but still it's a policy option, and the government could explore what should be the optimal carbon taxation in case of Pakistan and how that policy could be implemented. I hope that could help government generating fiscal space. The second one is about the expenditure side. expenditure sides, we can allocate 20% of PSDP to low carbon infrastructure. Right now, I'm not sure if we have any priority in PSDP for low carbon infrastructure programs. But if we by rule make it mandatory for PSDP projects that about out of 100%, at least 20-25% of infrastructure projects must be low carbon, then that could help green economy. Another one is about green budget tracking. That is to track climate-related expenditure in the budget. Government, did very excellent policies regarding electronic vehicle infrastructure, then renewable energy. Some policies are there, grid resilience, but those policies should be tagged in the budget as a green budget policies to explore what are the government's basically commitments towards a low carbon economy. And the last one is about the debt. Pakistan's debt crisis, everyone knows that it's a huge one, and we have been facing very difficult times. Now the situation is better due to the lower interest rate that reduces the cost of internal debt, and stable exchange rate that reduce the cost of external debt basically. But the important point here is that there is a practice in international economies that the developed countries waive off the debt against climate, projects. So that is known as debt for climate swaps. So we can do debt for climate swaps with our bilateral international partners if we show real commitment towards our low carbon economy or the green economy. That also, depends upon how aligned we are with market participation at international level. If we are internationally compliant with the market, with the regarding global carbon markets, that is also European Union carbon border adjustment mechanism, UAE's global carbon market, then the international donors can waive off our debt. That could also provide some space for the fiscal policy. So by working on our tech side, our expenditure side, and on debt sides, we have different options to work on. And through these options, we can improve the Pakistan economy for more greener, more cheaper, more reliable options. And always, the green thing, the low carbon thing, that is helpful in increasing our exports, making our exports more competitive to international market. And through private sector growth, the economy can also grow because the private sector growth is directly related to overall economic growth. With that, thank you very much. I would, if you have any question, I would be happy to answer that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Haider, for highlighting the fiscal side of it. You rightly mentioned the utility of debt for nature swaps, greening the fiscal policy, particularly the expenditure side, which is very important, along with the taxation. We know that the Resilience and Sustainability Fund facility, we need to get into the carbon taxation and other modalities of it. And yeah, the carbon markets are very important. These all measures, instruments, brings us to the debate that is revolving around green growth, and which is, I think, the future of Pakistan. And if we want to attain the high growth trajectory, as mentioned in the Uran Pakistan, those are very ambitious numbers. And if we want to follow that ambition, we need to couple it with the action. And the action, I think, is the green growth trajectory and the climate agenda. This brings us to the second session of this very impactful policy dialogue, that is fiscal framework for green growth in Pakistan. To set the scene, I'll again invite Ms. Nadia, the member Food Security and Climate Change at Ministry of Planning and Development Special Initiatives, to set the scene. Yeah, over to you, Ms. Nadia.
Thank you very much, Khalid. So the second panel, we are going to be discussing green growth strategy for Pakistan and our policies. And We have on the panel Ms. Aisha Khan, who's Chief Executive, Civil Society Coalition for Climate Change. With us, we have Mr. Asif Saeed Khan Lokmani, the Additional Secretary for Ministry of Industries, and Abu Bakr Ismail he's online with us from Amreli Steels, and Mr. Hassan Shafkat, CEO, Pakistan Textiles Council. In terms, we've already discussed the importance of a green growth for Pakistan, because this is the direction in which the international markets are now changing. If Pakistan wants to retain its share in international markets, retain its jobs, and provide jobs for our society, it is our responsibility to respond with the right policies and an enabling environment for private businesses to move towards green production systems, and also to provide the right opportunities for an equitable transition in terms of our job market, and to provide the right skills to the civil society so that they are prepared for the green transition towards growth. I will start the panel with a question to Mr. Asif Saeed Khan, Additional Secretary Industries, on how the government is moving forward with its policies for sustainable industrialization in the country. Thank you.
So, I think we have an afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody, and assalamu alaikum. I'll just highlight some of the things that the federal government is doing, and the Ministry of Industries and Production, along with the coordination with the Ministry of Climatic Change, Ministry of Planning, and the different ministries and our stakeholders. The main stakeholders, our industry, we are doing. So just to give you a little update on what we are doing and what we are planning, we are finalizing the first ever very practical industrial policy for the country, along with some development partners. The plan is that in the coming month or so that will be finalized. We are going through a process of consultation. Apart from providing some enabling environment to the industry in different sectors, we have 23 major industry sectors apart from the SMEs. So we'll be focusing on that. And in that, the major one of the major component of that policy is the greening of the industry. That is one of the major component, because we have international commitments. Our Ministry of Climatic Change is, and Ms. Nadia here, she's well aware of what the international commitments are, and I think it has been deliberated a lot in this conference also and at different forums. So one component is that we have to follow the international commitments in terms of the effluents that are going out of the industries, the emissions that the industry is doing, and the industry which is more efficient and environment friendly. So that is one cornerstone of our industrial policy, and we do not force people. We just create an environment. After the 18th Amendment, the industry, the component of industry with the provinces. But we work with the provinces, we work with the different industries, we work with the regulatory authorities. The policy is focused on creating that specific environment which industry develops, but it develops in an environmentally friendly manner, and we follow the international best practices of that. So that is one component that I have to highlight, is the industrial policy. What we have achieved in the past few months is that we have formulated a national electric vehicle policy, which is called the New Energy Vehicle Policy, and it is just going to be presented to the Prime Minister for approval, most probably in this month. And we had a lot of dialogue with the different agencies. We are the International Monetary Fund, and we had a steering committee. So it was a long process to formulate that policy, because it was not only cross-cutting with the different industries, it was also cross-cutting with the different regulatory bodies, and the around 60 sessions we conducted with the private sector. Why we focused on this first milestone as the New Energy Vehicle Policy was because 60% of the emissions in this country, you have all seen the problems in Lahore, in Peshawar, in Karachi, now even in Islamabad. It's so green city, and we have seen the smog and fog problems here. And the levels that we have crossed in terms of the health and the carbon monoxide and other emissions we have. So the basic problem is the transport sector, which accounts for almost 60% of the emissions. So that is why we switched, we focused on the national electrical vehicle policy. We have been, providing about 100 million rupees as capacity payments to the IPP. So we had surplus electricity, which was not consumed. So it was a win-win situation. Our import bill of around $6 to $7 billion is on transport sector. So for the country, economically, environmentally, in all aspects, it was a win-win situation that we switched to the electric vehicles. And countries are doing it very fast. And in our case, it is very important. So we had made that policy. It is all encompassing. We have taken not only we have taken the feedback of the private sector, the industries, but we have also taken the feedback of the think tanks, PIDC, the PIDE was with us, the STPI was with us, the different universities, the research centers that we have. So the one good news is that we have a good national dual electric vehicle policy with us, and that will be soon to be implemented. Its steering committees includes provinces, it includes about 7 ministries and people from the private sector. So that is one good news. The second thing is that right after this meeting, I think we will be having a CDWP meeting of planning, and we have pitched in a project on the recycling. That's a big industry of Pakistan. A lot of people are dependent on it. Poor people are dependent on it. In the clusters of Gujranwala, Sialkot, Lahore, Karachi, Peshawar, and we cannot just close down. It is a health hazard. It is also an environmental hazard. We have international commitments of the EU. We have the commitments of the Basel Convention, which we have to follow and which are not being followed in those recycling processes. So what we want to do is that we want to not to regulate or create a bureaucratic hurdles for that industry to flourish, but we want that those people who are employing or using this recycling facilities, that should be environment friendly. It should also be health friendly. So that is we'll start. The government will start first project. We'll pitch in some money, and most probably Gujranwala. Which kind of scrap I'm talking about? Metal scrap, ferrous scrap, non-ferrous scrap, plastic scrap, all kind of these scraps. When we have the compressors, the refrigerators and the ACs, these compressors come in large quantities. We extract copper from those compressors, from motors, and we export around $1 billion worth of copper every year. This is so important for us. So many people are employed, but it is not environmentally safe, not for the people, not for the environment, and we have to, So this is one major other area which we are focusing. And as I told you, in terms of the industrial policy, we are going forward. We have the RSF program of the RSF program of the International Monetary Fund, and some funding is going to be coming in for certain projects, including the National New Energy Vehicle Policy. So we think that Pakistan stand committing to aligning our economic reforms with the low carbon pathways, and we will be leveraging partnerships with our donors or our helpers like PG, CEP, the German Climatic Energy Partnership, and the greening of the macroeconomic regime demands a very coordinated action and a policy of the stakeholders, of the private sector involvement, of the involvement of the media, of the involvement of the think tanks, and of the civil society. So through the NEV, on our part, through NEV, the New Energy Vehicle Policy, the RSF program, the recycling things. Some of the efforts, we think that we can, move forward, and we can build Pakistan a resilient, inclusive, and a climatic smart country and economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Asif Said Saab, it is a step in the right direction. Finally, we will have the EV policy, and along with it, the policies that are required for the charging infrastructure so that we can have a mass transit system also developing in the cities to address negative externalities such as pollution and other issues of smog in our major cities. My next question is to CEO Pakistan Textiles Council. Textile is a large, it's one of the main exports of Pakistan, one of the mainstay of our industry. How is the Textile Council and textile industry preparing for changes in international regime in terms of CBAM, and also how is the textile industry looking at greening its processes and availing climate finance or carbon finance in this space? Mr. Abu Bakr Ismail. Okay.
Yes.
Pakistan. Okay. All right. So Pakistan Textile Council. Hassan Shafqat Saab, you're here. So my question to you is the same. Are we looking at greener processes, and how are we looking to finance these? Pakistan is not a large exporter of green steel, of steel, but in terms of financing your shift, what do you think the policy imperatives are? How would we move towards producing greener steel, and why would we want to do that? How can we use climate finance and carbon finance to fund it?
Should I use this one? Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible to the online participants. As you rightly mentioned that according to the CBAM, currently textile is not supposed to, change all its processes. And the focus right now by CBAM is on iron and aluminum industries. But we are not lagging behind. We are actually adapting to the whole scenario. Pakistan Textile Council itself represents around 5 billion of export to the UK, EU, and US. And all those buyers residing in those countries actually have their own requirements, which are based on EU Green Deal and their own standards that help to, safeguard health of animals, health of environment, and human beings alike. So for that, we have to have certain type of certifications when we have to export to these markets. So to just give you an idea, to get an export order in apparel industry, there are around 86 different types of standards that we have to meet. So that include ISO certification in 14001, that is the environmental management system. Then we have ISO 50001, which is the energy management system. We have Ecotex, we have REACH, we have GOTS, and a lot many types of certifications wherein these certifications are given to only those companies and manufacturers who ensure that they have all types of actions taken to reduce hazardous chemicals discharge into the environment. And at the same time, we require different types of standards for safeguarding the interests of our employees and animal health, organic types of raw materials have to be used. For example, just to give you, GOTS is a standard which says the global organic textile. That actually certification requires us to have processes which ensure that we do not use hazardous chemicals in our process also. So these types of requirements are already in place, and we are following these certifications as a requirement of the buyers. So what we want the government right now to do is in the current framework, legal framework of the country, these greening initiatives are not incentivized. So as we have been told to give some recommendations for the upcoming budget in 2025. So what we want to do, what to propose is that for big players like Pakistan Textile Council and some big members of other Pakistan Textile Exporters Associations, they are already doing a lot. The real problem is with the SME sector and our supply chain and the small producers in our country. You might be aware of the new directive of the European Union, which is called the Due Diligence Directive. Previously, we were only supposed to, look into our own manufacturing site, and within our manufacturing organization, we had to follow different standards. But after the Corporate Social Due Diligence Directive CS3D, now we have to look at the whole value chain. So the problem with our value chain is that because of their small size, they don't have either the resources or the capacity to carry out different types of audits to identify what type of carbon emissions they have, for example. So in that case, we would request the government that in the upcoming budget, they should actually incentivize, give some kind of a tax break, give some type of a financing scheme for the small and medium enterprises, wherein to bring in machinery that is energy efficient, you get loans at a low interest rate. Government, with the help of NAFTAC and TEFTAs in the country, they create skill development in the different small and medium enterprises, and we'll be having I guess a seminar tomorrow also, which has been organized by the same organizers, where we'll be talking about green skills, and I'm also invited there, and I'll share my input over there on this. But in the budget, the NAFTAC and the TEFTAs have to be strengthened so that they are able to provide green skills to our manpower. At the same time, as I was saying that, for example, as it is happening in all of our sectors, the non-taxpayers and inefficiency is not, a strict action is taken for them, and for the taxpayers, there are very small incentives to, give the tax. Same is happening in the greening of the economy. There are no present incentives for the industry to actually become green. We are only doing it because of the requirement of the buyers in our exporting markets. So the government firstly should also establish our own standards. And since we are talking about green energy, we as a council already have around 2000 megawatts of energy. We are sourcing it from green, types like solar, wind, bagasse, and other types of sources. But as somebody was mentioning in the previous talk, that we only have so much space in our, factory or a manufacturing facility to place solar panels. So what we want is that the wheeling mechanism through CTBCM is immediately implemented, so that if I buy a farm, a solar farm or a wind farm somewhere away from my factory, and I'm producing that renewable energy, I'm able to evacuate that energy from that point and bring it to my, own manufacturing facility. And for that, the cost of, putting in whole transmission lines is not possible for the businesses. So government has to come in over here and help us in that. At the same time, government itself should carry out its own audit of the carbon emissions it is producing. If I know when I'm producing energy myself, I know what type of carbon emission or GHG emission is there. But when I am buying energy from the government through grid, I know the mix of the government, but actual carbon emission has to be, verified and reported by the government. So WAPDA and all these other power producers, they should carry out their own audits. And when they are billing us or the consumers, in that bill, the total carbon emissions should be mentioned. At this stage, reporting of the carbon emissions is very important. And because to report that, we would require energy audits. And at this stage, government should have some kind of a project or plan in the upcoming budget where for their own energy producers, they carry out this whole monitoring and verification of the total and reporting of the total carbon emissions of their own energy mix. So with these, I would like to finish my talk, and if there are any questions, I will be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Now I'll come to Ms. Aisha Khan. Civil society is a very important actor if we want to move towards green growth. So both in terms of generating demand for greener solutions by behavioral change to adoption of greener ways of using transport, or the way what we demand in terms of what we are, how we feed ourselves, how we live, and in terms of our practices. So civil society in generating demand and also in generating solutions as entrepreneurs, and also advocates to the government for adaptation and mitigation. So what role do you think the civil society is playing, and what partnerships are fruitful that you think are working and can improve in terms of your interaction with the government?
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, very grateful to all the organizers. Civil society, in fact, is a very broad term. It encompasses many different kinds of actors and actions that they take. So I think that if we break them down into civil society academics, or civil society actors who work on the field, or civil society actors who are part of think tanks, it'll be easier for us to understand the cumulative role that they can play. I can share with you some thoughts on how civil society can contribute, has been contributing, where are the limitations in its role, and how we can enhance and strengthen partnerships. I think it's very important to understand that civil society works very closely with grassroots communities. It engages with them. It has a better and more robust understanding of what are the needs, hopes, and aspirations of people at the grassroots level who get directly impacted by climate change. Therefore, one of the first thoughts that comes to my mind is that policies are made top down. They are not done in consultation with the real people who get affected, and therefore we need to have a more realistic approach towards formulating these policies. Also, I think the expectation from the community is that government would be more serious and sincere, and their approaches would be more transparent, they would be just, and they would be orderly and equitable. That is a sense which the communities do not have because of the lack of trust or lack of communication that is now existing between the government and the communities. I personally have been working in this space for over 2 decades now. So what I see is that our policies are very ambitious. And I do concede that a policy document is a statement of intent, so it should be ambitious. But we tend to make them so ambitious that they become unrealistic to implement, and then we start identifying the gaps and say why we are unable to implement them. So a policy framework in its current shape perhaps is good, but I think it's time now, with climate change accelerating and the timelines shrinking to keep 1.5 alive, that we should also be looking at subsets of smart policies which are more specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And in order to do that, we have to take a very structured approach because the national climate change policy is an overarching document, but the real policies are the ones that have been developed by the provinces. And these two need to be aligned. And when we talk about macro-fiscal frameworks, then we have to see how much funding in the budget is allocated in the PSDPs for climate-related activities. I think for the communities and for the provinces, it is also equally important to have dedicated climate finance. When we talk about climate change, there are three things that always surface as the core areas which become obstacles that prevent us from taking these policies forward. And these are the means of implementation: finance, capacity, and technology. So how are we going to approach these in a structured manner where we resort to means which are within our means and where we reach out to exogenous sources to provide us with the technology and finance and institutional capacity building? I think at the community level, what I myself feel is that we always go and preach that they should take an integrated approach to resource management, that they should work collectively, they should work collaboratively. But we don't set this example or the stage to show that there is cross-ministerial coordination that goes into framing these policies, which are then shared with them for implementation. Also, I think periodically we need to do the vulnerability assessment because climate change is dynamic. It is not static. So one set of policies and one set of financial liabilities or needs that we create needs to be revisited every few years because those policies need to be aligned with the fiscal needs, monetary needs. Green growth strategies are very, very important because when we talk about growth and development, I think sustainability is a very, very important component. And when we talk about sustainable development, then green growth becomes very important. How do we manage that? I think we have to incentivize green growth investments, and a lot has been said before me by other speakers on how do we incentivize the private sector, the industry, how do we reduce the carbon footprint, how do we build capacity, and how do we make policies that strengthen the institutional capacity of the implementers. We always bemoan the fact that policies are not being implemented, but we do not go back to see where is the transparency, accountability mechanism of the implementers so they become accountable to the people. We have policies from 2012, 2021, and a host of other policies. All of them remain unimplemented. So there is, I think, a very strong case for us to go back and review that perhaps the main component of monitoring and evaluation is missing from these policies. And unless we introduce them as the core pillar for being able to track progress, we will not be able to implement the policies which are framed and crafted very carefully and they look very nice on paper. But if they do not have the ability to implement them, then they are just worth the paper that they're written on. I think one of the other things, and Sylvia, you're very familiar because you raised this issue again and again, is credible data. We need to standardize. We need to have trust that the data that is being shared with us is transparent, has followed a standard, and is something that we can believe in. We should not have several sets of data selectively developed to project a point of view that serves political agendas. Tracking climate expenditures is again very, very important. We did have the CPEIR once, but I think to do something on a systemic routine basis is very important. Otherwise, we do not get a sense on how the money is flowing, where it is flowing, what it is achieving. There's a need to identify, I think, the short and long-term goals for investments and prioritize them. Unless we go into each sector and within that sector, we prioritize what is the most important thing for us and focus and achieve those targets, it will be very difficult. One of the things also that we discussed and that was mentioned by other speakers was the resilience sustainability framework for the IMF. My own feeling is that we do have a tendency to look at everything negatively. I don't think we should look at this as something that is coming to us as an external coercive measure, which is unfair, but receive it as something which is a positive recommendation which will help us to catalyze and move towards green growth. I think we are on the right track in terms of our policy statements, in terms of our political commitments, in terms of the positions we take at international conventions and meetings. But we somehow have short-term memories of what we are committing to. We do not undertake the structural reforms that are necessary to push the agenda through. And we need to realize that talking about certain things and saying all the politically correct things can take us so far. It does not restrict the impacts that are going to happen and follow. And climate change has become so important now that without integrating it into policy frameworks and budgetary planning, we have no other way forward. And I think this was mentioned by one of the speakers that it's no longer a choice that we have, it's an imperative. And it is something that we can ignore at our own peril. So keeping in view that geographically we are placed in a position where our topography extends from the cryosphere to the coast, we have a host of issues that we need to address. And we have a host of differences between the socio-economic indicators of each location as it is impacted. And we also have very culturally different people who inhabit these pockets. So we have to take all these things into consideration and not just make one fit-for-all policy, but go into the specifics of what works for which province and how do we promote provincial integration, collaboration, cooperation. We need to have a dedicated budget. We need to have dedicated finance for climate change. We have the NDRMF, but there's a lot of confusion about how it's being used, how it is reappropriated. And now we have the Climate Authority, and we're talking about creating a new fund. So coming up with alternative, I think, institutions is not an answer. The answer is to consolidate and have a point of convergence where all these ministries come together, have a common agenda. And I think Ministry of Planning is extremely important because this is where all the planning takes place. So a very strong network of collaboration between planning, finance, and Ministry of Climate Change is important to take the agenda forward. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aisha, for a very thorough response on both the policy planning that the government has to do and implementation, and then financing that so that consumers and civil society can play the role in formulation of the policy and also in the implementation and adoption of the policy. So that brings me to Additional Secretary Industries. I would like to pose these questions to you that Aisha has raised, that how we are bringing a sustainable industrial policy and an EV policy forward. How is that going to make climate finance or concessional finance available to our consumers and the civil society so that there is actually an uptake of the EVs or cleaner vehicles? And what do you have in place in terms of monitoring and evaluation for during the course of implementation of this policy that you will see that it actually results in adoption?
Thank you, Nadia. First of all, I'd like to respond to Ms. Aisha's query about, the policies which are just lying in the shelves and not implemented? It is a very pertinent question, I must say. I must appreciate that. What happened in the the vehicle policy of 2019? It was made by all the stakeholders, but the steering of that policy was with the Ministry of Climatic Change. Climatic change ministry is a major focal ministry, but it was not its job, not even in the terms of the rules of business, not in terms of the coordination with the provinces and all that. It was a political decision, it failed. We learned from mistakes. Then we went why it failed. We went into all the details. What were the reasons that that policy failed? It was never implemented. A part of it was implemented. Even the concessions that were, should be provided to the industry were not taking place. So what happened is that we studied that, we studied along with our development partners, we identified our problems, identified the problems of the ministries, our own ministry, the other ministries, the FBR, the private sector, and then we went and made that policy. So policies should be implemented. The second thing, which Mishai sir said, it should be monitored. It is very, very important. So that was in our mind. So we put a complete section in which we had, responsibilities, in which we had, identified goals, and in which we have milestones. And the steering committee recommended that not less than the Prime Minister should monitor. So this is the way. And I'm telling you, just to tell you that the life of a civil servant is not that easy these days. We are monitored day and night. Nadia has been bear me out. Starts in the morning at 9 and ends somewhere after 10 o'clock. But we are committed and we want to contribute. So this is how things are going at the moment. And if Allah allows, if we move forward, things remain the same, we are going to find some good news in the coming years for our generations to come. What Nadia also referred was, there are two kinds of things that, one is the supply side incentive, which is from the industry, who is supplying what incentives we provide them. That is being given in the policy. Unfortunately, because we are in the extended funds facility program of the IMF, so we are, we cannot just give them too much exemptions of sale tax, income tax, and customs duties, that we are bound. And we have a national commitment in that. But in terms of, the demand side, how we can raise demand, we have finalized a scheme which the Prime Minister himself, gave us this duty to do. And it is its name is, it's a scheme under the National Electric Vehicle Policy to start with around 5 billion rupees. We are going to disperse in the form of financing of 40,000 electric bikes. And that will be given mostly to the young people across the provinces. And secondly, what we'll be doing is that we will not be giving it to the industry. We'll be giving that money directly to the person who that bike is allocated. So we are taking around 25% of the equity that he has to pay, and apart from that, the interest on his payment. So it will be just 8,000 to 9,000 rupees that the biker will pay, because there's a difference between an electric bike and an internal combustion bike. That difference, varies from 70,000 to 80,000 to 100,000. Depending on the CCs. Like if it's 120,000 rupees a CD70, so the electric bike of the same capacity is around 190. So that's the gap. So government has come in. What it will do, it will introduce the bikes. Already you can see the bikes coming in. Our ladies are driving it. The courier companies are using it. Many people are shifting to it. But it needs a demand incentivization. The poor people of this country are using bikes mostly. So we have to, we cannot put too much burden. So government has, chipped in 5 billion rupees, and this scheme is soon to be announced by the Honorable Prime Minister. And that will be one demand side incentives. And in the policy we have recommended, and on the RSF has some, connections with it. There are some levies which will be coming from the federal excise duty on the internal combustion engine vehicles that will be sold. So those will also come in, and those will also come into play, and those will create demand side incentives. So that will be a fund. This will be a revolving fund, which, apart when this 5 billion goes off, 40,000 will not cover. We have, around 2 crore and 60 lakh bikes in this country. So it's a large number. So how we replace it? So we'll incentivize them, and we have a plan that by 2030, at least the 50% of the bikes that are sold are electric bikes. This is our target that we have committed with the international agencies and with the Ministry of Climatic Change. So this is how we move forward, and we plan that we should be practical. The policy should not be just lying at the shelves. Those should be implementable. Those should be monitored. People should have commitment that the political commitment should be with them, the bureaucratic, the civil society, everybody should be committed to those policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think that with this, these comments, we are going to come to the conclusion of the panel, and I will pass this on to Khaled. So we are going to conclude the panel, and
thank you very much, Khansab. That was very, very valuable. Aisha had to leave. She sends her regrets, but she has had a meeting with the Minister MOCs at 1. I would like to thank all of our physical participants, all of our virtual participants. Very importantly, I would like to thank you, Nadia, for your support of this initiative. We're excited to take this further with you to obviously your team, who we've been working with very closely, and my dear colleagues at SDPI who put up with my sometimes harebrained ideas, and then we run with it and we make it work. I'm very grateful to everyone. We have a lot of very rich thinking that's come out of this session. What's going to happen next is that we're going to put out a policy advisory. This will be available in the public domain for everyone to access. Then I do know that Nadia has some great plans of how we're going to better institutionalize this. We would like for this to become an ongoing consultative forum so that we can keep advising the policy-making process at whatever level, bringing in great minds like we did with you now, Khansab. Thank you very much for that. And we look forward to your continued participation. My heartfelt thanks to you, Nadia, for everything, for making today a success. Thank you.
thank you very much, Sophia. So as our SDPI and GIC are partners in this, and today we have discussed 2 important policies. One was industrial policy with a focus on EVs and green growth, and the second was the power sector reforms, and how the 2 connect in terms of our greening the macro-fiscal economic regime. So, Asksab, before you came, there was a discussion on how the power sector, there is a difference in marginal prices in the day. The solar, the energy that comes from solar, it comes at a lower rate. In the evening, it would come at a higher rate. So the shift of industrial producers to adopt solar and renewables, that requires costing. So if there are those variabilities, then the adoption is going to be lower. And in the future, we are going to see that variability is also going to diminish because battery prices are falling. So people will shift towards solar batteries, solar power batteries in the evening, so that differential in marginal prices is going to shift. It's going to become more stable to source renewables to clean our for CBAM as we estimate, right? So in terms of a holistic approach towards towards aligning the power policy, the transport, the logistics policy, because in scope 3 emissions, when you look at supply side and greening of the supply side, it's not only energy, it's also whether it's coming from green transport and logistics, where the EV policy is going to play a very large role, especially if we move towards mass transit too eventually, because or logistics and freight carriers, because that's going to green the entire supply chain. So looking at our power policy along with the industrial policy, power policy in terms of cost of production and adoption of greener sources, and industrial policy and EV policies for mass transport and mass transit. We have to bring that element in. I understand that we are generating demand for three-wheelers. We will also have to provide incentives and programs for mass transit. With Government of Punjab, the Planning Commission has approved a mass transit program for the city of Lahore and Punjab. And it's all electric. It's based on electric vehicles, and there are other policies that are coming in for incentivizing the charging infrastructure so that we have the charging infrastructure for EVs. So you talked earlier about other policies for recycling, and then we need recycling policies for, say, batteries. Yeah, green clusters of industry. So the reason that we've started this dialogue is that the role of the Commission is to align various different policies that are being made in other ministries, such as the transport policy and energy policy and the industrial policy and climate policies. So this group is going to result into a technical working group. The policy advisory that GIC is going to work with us on, that is going to inform the group. And then we will continue this beyond the budget process, because greening a macroeconomic regime will require a consistent advocacy and and brainstorming the policies and cross-informing them. So look forward to this partnership with SDPI and GIZ, and thank you to all the colleagues and participants from Ministry of Planning and Ministry of Industries and from the Ministry of Power and civil society. And we will go forward and continue the dialogue. And thank you very much. Thank you.